na kutojali sheria.
We have to work hard so that we can justify the faith, the commitment, the sacrifice you have made to make us who we are.
I am really, Your Excellency, very impressed by the Kidik style of management. Akiamua ni hapa, hata kama ikuta anapitia hapa.
And to date, no one has been arrested and even just taken to court to actually see whether a court can just give bond or not. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, sir, contrary to what the member for Kinango has stated, the policy of this administration is zero tolerance on impunity, whether the impunity is perpetuated by private citizens or even by officers of government, including security agents. As I have said, Mr. Speaker, investigations have been done, and I do not want to reveal the outcome because the decision is pending the decision of the DPP, but I want to assure the House and the member for Kinango that the officers who may have committed this crime against an innocent Kenyan will have their date in court. The government, the ministry, the National Police Service will not stand and try to protect a rogue officer who misuses the instruments of state power to kill, torture, or hurt innocent Kenyans. Justice will be done.
Thank you. Yes, right. I said one supplementary.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, why I'm actually making this allegation is that sometimes
Give him the mic. Yes.
Sometimes on 26th of July this year, the same JSH officers invaded a certain home in the same area. They beat 6 people, were taken to hospital, and in September, they killed this young man. Nobody has been charged. So we are actually wondering, where are we heading to? Because people are actually being beaten without being taken to the police for them to be charged. Because what was the charge of this young man who was actually collected at his home in the morning? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm aware there has been repeated complaints about that GSU camp. And I have the evidence of my colleague, the minister responsible for mining, who comes from that area. And on the occasion, the MP for Kinango is alleging or stating that there was a violation associated with the police officers. It is true, and the Internal Affairs Unit is almost concluding investigations on that matter. Unfortunately, some of these investigations take a bit of time because by the time you want to arraign officers or dismiss them, you must have concrete evidence. But I want to assure the member, no officer will be protected by any person in government or out of government to avoid responsibility. I submit.
Adoma Owor, question 013.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Mine is question number Secretary to clarify whether the ministry followed with its commitment to investigate and provide a report on the findings of the investigation. Security agencies have failed to prevent recurrence of gang attacks which occurred in the said area. Mr. Speaker, I also want the report to this House detailing the individuals responsible for organizing and indicate whether they have been applied to criminal charges. Could Secretary further elaborate to this House the measures and the actions that the ministry has undertaken to contain the future cross-border attacks at Sondu area? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, in answer by the member for Nyakach, we did follow through our commitment to investigate the situation in Sondu within the area at the border of Kisumu and Kericho. That area has been prone with recurrent violence. I agree with the member for Nyakach that it was unfortunate that the in October was regrettable, and when we made an inquiry, we found that there was laxity among our own officers who had command responsibility in that area. And that is why we have taken measures to transfer the officers from that area. But I am happy to report to the House, Mr. Speaker, that we have made tremendous progress in terms of zeroing down on the culprits of that violence. We have already taken 10 people to court. Already they have been charged. And this week, we intend to take to court another 12 people. And Mr. Speaker, in terms of the third question, which is whether or not we've been able to zero down on the major masterminds, planners, orchestrators of this violence, I am happy to report that we have made tremendous progress, and we will be charging quite a number of people in the coming weeks. We have been engaged on the ground in terms of putting the security infrastructure on both sides of the border in the two counties, and our forensic investigations have led us to certain people of interest who will be recording statements, including people from Kericho County and people from Kisumu County. I want to promise the House that this time round, the Sondu violence will be dismantled. The infrastructure around Sondu violence will be dismantled, and we are going to be extremely firm and hold accountable all those who have in one way or the other encouraged, participated, funded, or in any other way enabled that horrendous crime against the people of Sondu. We are calling upon the political leaders to be a little patient with us. Sometimes investigations take a bit of time. I give commitment that we will not spare anybody, neither will we introduce ethnicity or any affiliation. We will charge everybody who is culpable, irrespective of ethnic, political, or other affiliation. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Kaduma.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I want to thank the Cabinet Secretary because I know he has made tremendous efforts to ensure there's peace in the area. But that notwithstanding, there are many people who suffered, who lost property running into millions, and I don't know whether there are any measures in place to try to compensate the victims of the clashes.
Thank you, Basil. Minister Tech Joyride.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the CS. Now we are approaching festive seasons, and I would like to know what is the ministry doing or planning to do to manage sporadic increase in crime. Thank you.
Minister, I'll allow one more. I'll take Rosa Buyu.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I want to confirm that this has been a major discussion in the Committee of Security. Speaker, recently the CS did announce that they had thousands of policemen. Mr. Speaker, in the also had said that there seemed to have been a compromise, some compromised officers, and that they were transferred. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to ask the CS, is it good enough just to transfer the officers? Is there a possibility that these officers could actually be moved totally away from that county, so that at least the laxity and the friendliness and all those other things that come with people working in a locality for too long can be eliminated? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, sir, once we tame the ogre of violence and the people who have visited this violence on the residents of Sondu, taking advantage of boundary issues, revenue collection issues, but basically committing crime. Once we are done with fixing the perpetrators, we are commencing in the next few days, actually, not even weeks, a peace-building process for sustainable peace in that area, to talk to community leaders, elders, youth and women leaders, political leaders, and leaders of all shapes and sizes to make sure that there is durable peace there. And for us in the peace-building unit in our ministry, one of the things that we will be pursuing is restorative justice as a way of sustainable peace. And therefore, without preempting the program, I want to say that part of our peace-building and sustainability program will include listening to the grievances of those who have suffered from the merchants of violence in Sondu, with a view to making some kind of conclusion and closure so that the communities there can live in peace. Honorable Speaker, it is true that during the festive season, the country moves into a holiday mood, and the criminals know that perhaps that is the time they should be striking. So for us in the security sector, this is our busiest season. As everybody retreats for holidays, we have mobilized ourselves. In fact, all those officers who are on leave have to forfeit their leaves, and we will be on duty, alert, and we have already mapped the country so that to be able to spot the potential sources of threat so that we can neutralize them before they succeed. I want to assure the House and the people of Kenya that we will go out of our way not only to remain alert, but also to prepare ourselves across the country, noting that the festive season is normally a season which requires extra vigilance. We are prepared, and we pray that the season will be incident-free. The festival season will be incident-free. Lastly, Honorable Chair, the member for Kisumu West has asked on the transfer policy. I want to respond and inform the House that our transfer policy involves the transfer of an officer to a different location altogether, most preferably outside the county they have been serving. We initiated about 1.5 months ago a process of transferring all officers who had overstayed, those who had worked in one station for more than 3 years. And in case in the area of Kisumu West or any other part of our country, there are officers who still have not been transferred. Of course, the exercise is ongoing, but I'll be more than happy to assist the affected members to ensure that no officer overstays in one area, because we have realized it compromises the impartiality, efficiency, and ability to deliver security to our people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Monica Mudhoni, member for Lamu. Honorable Aduma, I gave you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Hold, Monica.
Thank you, Honorable.
Monica, just hold. Yes, Aduma.
Can I get the mics? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There's something little which has escaped the attention which I raised, whether these people could be accommodated just to restore them. If there's anything little the government can do to restore them, because those are small-scale businesses. I know we cannot restore lives, but the families for those who lost property and houses, if there's anything the government can have in mind. I noticed that one.
Do you have any capacity to help the displaced victims settle? That's what he's asking. Something little, he's saying.
If you, the Speaker, if you ask me about capacity, I would say no. But I think I answered that question in this manner. We are committed to sustainable peace building in that area, and for that reason, we have instructed our peace building unit to look at possibilities of making some form of closure and reparations in a modest way, not really in terms of compensation, but in terms of making, softening the edges so that the communities on both sides of the border who have been affected by this violence can have sustainable peace. We will find a way of having some form of one-off token for verifiable cases of deprived families who have suffered from this violence.
Mudhoni.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to ask question by private notice number 16 of 2013 on the insecurities in Lamu County. 2023. Could the Cabinet Secretary state, number one, whether the frequent attacks in Witho, Salama, Ziwa Lata, Bobo, and Roka in Lamu County are targeted at a specific sections of the community or religious groups? Number two, why the government is yet to apprehend the terror suspects of 2014 massacre in Lamu County, noting that some of the suspects are implicated in the list of wanted persons as published by the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, DCI, on 18th October 2013, and if the government have sought for international assistance on the matter. Number three, whether the security agencies deployed in Lamu for the security operations are well equipped and trained to respond to terror attacks, and whether the government has sought, again, international assistance in these operations. Number four, the effectiveness of the Operation Linda Boni and other security operations in Lamu County established to restore security in the area, and the measures that have been put in place to ensure effectiveness of such operations. Finally, Mr. Speaker, whether the terror attacks are an act of external aggression from the neighboring counties aimed at advancing an international ideology, or are homegrown, and if homegrown, state whether they are politically instigated and who are the facilitators, funders, and sympathizers. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I returned from Lamu last night, particularly Mkunumbi, and I was able to meet some stakeholders there from Juhudi Salama, Witho, and other places that are part of this question, which the member for Lamu has asked me to respond. Allow me, Mr. Speaker, to give this House the information that best answers the questions that have been raised, but at the same time, careful that terrorists also watch parliamentary proceedings and they watch the statements made by state officials as a way of getting information on what the thinking of the government and the state and the people of Kenya is, so that they can win against us. Having given that caveat, I want to say that Lamu is one of the areas, one of the parts of our country that has suffered untold suffering since, I think for the last 11 years or so. We've seen repeated attacks by terrorists. We have had serious bloodshed, loss of life, loss of property, and untold suffering by the people of Lamu not only in the areas that have been listed in this question, but other parts of Lamu County. I have been asked to say, or to tell this House and the people of Kenya, whether those attacks are targeted against a particular community or religious group, and the answer is in the negative. Those attacks are attacks by criminals who hide behind religion. While they are not religious themselves, they hide behind religion to hurt other people, not just in Lamu, but in other parts of our country. We've been hurt by these people and other parts of the world. Terrorism is a global problem. And in terms of the attacks we have witnessed in Lamu, it is unfair, inappropriate to say that a certain religious group or ethnicity has been targeted. What we know is that we have had casualties from different ethnicities, perhaps not in the same numbers, but we've had casualties from different ethnicities. Number two is that the profile now of the terror groups like Al-Shabaab, you will find that whereas it is assumed that there could be ethnic or religious orientation of the attackers, many ethnic communities in this country today are represented in terms of radicalized young people who have joined terror groups, including Al-Shabaab. And therefore, it is wrong, Mr. Speaker, for us as a country to start or to fall into the trap of the terrorists. The terrorist intends to divide us along ethnic and religious lines because they know when we are divided, they'll hurt us and they will win. Number two, Honorable Speaker, I've been asked to tell the House why the government is unable or is yet to apprehend the suspects of the that are responsible for previous attacks, yet the suspects have been circulated. Terrorism is a highly organized, highly financed, and highly planned international crime. Even the most sophisticated country in terms of technology and military power is still grappling and is still looking for some of the terror suspects who have hurt them and who have hurt their interest for years, sometimes for decades. And therefore, on our part, the government of Kenya has made tremendous efforts in terms of hunting down and neutralizing some of the suspects or some of the terrorists who have hurt us in the past, but we do admit quite a number of them still are at large. We may have profiled them, we may have information about them, but we are yet to apprehend them because of the nature of terrorism and the operations of terrorism and terror groups, and we are looking for them, and we've made a lot of progress. Every month, once, twice, thrice, we have been able to either apprehend or bring down a terrorist whom we have been looking for years. And therefore, it is unfair to blame security agencies who have paid a huge price to look for, to apprehend, and to neutralize some of the people who have visited this kind of violence on us over the years. Number three, I have been asked to say whether the security deployments we have in Lamu and the operation going there is adequate. The answer is yes. I have been in that part of our country several times. I think yesterday was my 6th visit. Some of the visits are overt, others are covert, and I can assure you all our facilities in that Boni Enclave in Lamu and parts of the Boni Enclave outside Lamu are well equipped. The officers are in high morale. Occasionally we have suffered setbacks, both in terms of civilian casualties, but also we have lost officers due to accidental attacks. As you are aware, terrorists don't do direct engagement. They are cowards. They come at night, they plant things and hide in the bushes and wait for their luck that somebody will step on their item and get hurt. So we have lost officers, and I want to salute, Mr. Speaker, young men and women of this country, officers who have gone out of their way to defend the country, including paying the ultimate price of losing their lives in defense of our country. I am satisfied with Operation Linda Boni. However, we increasingly and continuously review the operations in terms of identifying what gaps exist so that we make sure that we thwart as many, if not all the attempts. And I may want to inform the House, Mr. Speaker, that from where I sit, I can confirm to the country that there are hundreds of attempts to hurt our country by terror groups. We have been able to neutralize many of them in their hundreds every week. And they are not imaginary attempts, real attempts, either by probing our camps, either by our officers on patrol, getting into contact with the terror groups. It's only that these are not things to report every day. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, the Operation Linda Boni is doing well. The last review of that operation was yesterday. I spent the whole day in Lamu, and I sat with all the commanders, the formation commanders from the National Police Service and the Kenya Defense Forces. And I must commend also the working relationship between our officers from the organs of internal security and those of our national defense. They are working seamlessly, patriotically, and I think they really need our support and applause. And Honorable Speaker, therefore, that operation is effective, but we have so that we defeat this enemy. We did publish a month ago or thereabouts a list of 36 most wanted suspects of terror in the Boni Enclave, and that number has now reduced to about 31. Some of them we have already got hold of them. And that is the good news, that perhaps, unfortunately, we can't keep on talking about it all the time. The others, we are still looking for them, and we will get them. We will get them in our country. And if we cannot track them in our country, we will pursue them outside our country and deal with them from there. And 4 already in the past 4 weeks have had their date with justice. Honorable Speaker, finally, I have been asked to clarify whether the terror attacks are as a result of external aggression from neighboring countries, advancing an international ideology, or whether they are locally brewed. And the answer is that for someone to come from a foreign country and walk into a village and hurt our people, along the way, a Kenyan has assisted that person. I don't know who that Kenyan is. They must have bought some food somewhere. They must have been directed to reach somewhere, because many of these terror operations operate on foot. And therefore, whether or not the threat is coming from outside or from inside, the answer is neither here nor there. The answer actually is that the problem is both external and internal. And until we become a country that is patriotic enough so that we do not give away our country for whatever benefit, we have some little journey to travel. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, as I end on this question, I would like to plead all of us so that we remove politics, we remove religion, we remove all the other affiliations and connections from terror, and treat terrorism as the greatest existential threat we have on our country, the damage that terror can do to a country. And you know, a terrorist needs to succeed once. You can stop him 1,000 times, but he just needs to succeed once to hurt us enough. Please let us remove politics, let us remove religion, let us remove ethnicity, and face terrorists as enemies of our country, whether they are from outside or they are local aiders and abettors of the crime. I submit, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Muthoni.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Mr. Speaker, putting into consideration the caveat given by the Cabinet Secretary, I wish to register there is unreserved gratitude of the people of Lamu to the Cabinet Secretary and His Excellency the President for the immense attention, consideration that the government have given to this rather very complex Lamu security situation. Henceforth, Mr. Speaker, we are confident that this issue will conclusively be dealt with and that we will not witness any more loss of life in Lamu. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. The owner of the question is satisfied. Do we need to flog it anymore? I'll give one joyrider, the nominated MP from Garissa. Umulher.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I would like to thank the Cabinet Secretary for that response. This particular matter is very pressing, I think, especially to me, because we have seen a lot of work that has been done by the Ministry of Interior, and part of the Linda Nchi and Operation Boni also encourages community engagement and supporting and working with community. But there's a very scary trend that's going on, which is actually intimidating community members. The continuous and forceful abductions of young people. And these are people who are being abducted both in broad daylight and at night with unmarked police vehicles. And the recent case being 3 young men, and we had to make noise as a leadership, and they were released. And currently there's still 1 young gentleman called China from Garissa who's missing. So my question to the Cabinet Secretary, in line with the spirit of community engagement, what exactly do we anticipate to happen when the officers continually abduct, intimidate, to a point of even threatening the community members? Because in such a scenario, if the community has crucial information, then it becomes a problem to even relay the message to the officers. So I'm very keen to find out, and I would like to highlight the county action plans that were done by the National Counterterrorism for the last 4 years, which have been rolled out across the county. Are we really following the spirit of the NCTC? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister, let me, because these appear to be the most cross-cutting questions, I'll give you 2 more joyriders. Arik, member for, is that Akuja or Ariko? Ariko. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, could the Cabinet Secretary clarify as to whether the recurrent conflict in the north is as a result of unclear physical demarcation of boundaries between counties, between constituencies and counties? Secondly, could the Cabinet Secretary explain which plans is he putting in place so that to make clear the boundaries of these constituencies and counties? Thirdly,
order, one at a time.
Thirdly,
I'll give now the member for Kamukunji. Ariko, I've given you one chance, my friend. Now you want to ask all the questions on your mind.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. And I want to say that, in fact, I have written to the Cabinet Secretary on the 20th of September about an issue relating to my constituency on the centralization of the Kamukunji Police Command, which are now split into three areas, three distinct commands. One is in Pangani in Starehe, the other one is in Ruaraka, and the third one is in Buruburu in Makadara. My police stations are split into half and half, and my OCPD, the OCPD Kamukunji, is situated in Buruburu, several kilometers away from my neighborhood. This is despite the recent police reforms and reorganization that had created a new and standalone Kamukunji command. This has created a disjointed, conflicting and confusing and ineffective policing structure. The people of Kamukunji have to go to distances to engage and get help from the police. Sometimes you do not know whether you should go to Pangani in the north or to Ruaraka or to Buruburu to get your police issues resolved, particularly when people are detained. This is a very busy and densely populated neighborhood with large business hubs like Isli, Kikomba, Bama markets, with special security needs. So I'm asking the Honorable Minister, when will the National Police Service consider moving the Kamukunji Police Command to one single place, location, inside Kamukunji? And what is the reason for this illogical fragmentation?
Thank you. Korere? I'll give you the last one on this side.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. In light of what the Cabinet Secretary has alluded to, community engagements and probably using community to find lasting peaceful solutions, I would just like to probably hear from the Cabinet Secretary what the ministry is doing about the proliferation of small arms and illegal firearms in the north, owing to the fact that, Mr. Speaker, sir, we cannot be lied to that a man who cannot put food on his table can buy a brand new AK-43, AK-47, G3 rifle. Mr. Speaker, sir, I would really want the Cabinet Secretary to tell us whether they have done enough investigations to even unravel and know who are the real people behind the funding of guns and other arms in the north.
Korere, what is out of order?
Speaker, nothing is out. Speaker, I'm humbly seeking your directions. Speaker, this is a very sensitive matter. I serve in the Security Committee. There are details, therefore, that by the nature of this matter, the CS obviously cannot give us when we are being watched live. There are
You already said so.
aspects of questions which we cannot address when we are live. Would I request, Honorable Speaker, that in as much as we take the information from the Speaker, from the CS, this matter may be on your authority, goes back to the Committee on Administration and Internal Affairs so that it can be treated in better detail. I'm just asking, Honorable Speaker.
So far, I've not heard anything that requires that drastic action, Honorable Kaluma. I think the questions being asked are about things that are in public domain. Ownership of illegal guns, acquisition of illegal guns, boundary problems, terror in Lamu, and profiling of young people, abductions, extrajudicial behavior. All these are things that are in public domain, and I think the minister is sufficiently competent to decipher the extent to which he can make exposures that are within the confines of what you are worried about. I believe, Minister, you can be able to handle that. Let me give the member next to KJ, that is Honorable Alpha Miruka.
Machoge. Thank you, Speaker. I want to, in line with what others are asking, is the Minister aware that Kisii County has been very peaceful since independence, but of late there's a lot of crime going on in our area. In fact, recently I saw a petrol station being attacked with uniform gangs. Just the other day, an MCA was robbed in his own house. There's another one called Arege. They went in the house, did a lot of terrible things. What are the measures? Do you have the case? Can I be able to understand what are you doing about Kisii and Nyamira insecurity?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Answer those first.
Mr. Speaker, sir, with regard to the issue of engaging communities in the fight against terror, we are in complete agreement with the sentiments of the member for Garissa. And Mr. Speaker, I think going forward, beginning with what we were doing in Lamu yesterday, going forward, we want to foster the ownership of this fight against sophisticated crime within the communities. We want to anchor it within the communities and build trust among the various communities in whatever locality, but also between those communities and security agencies so that we can win this war. On the question of extrajudicial killings, the policy of the Kenya Kwanza administration is zero tolerance on extrajudicial killings. And therefore, not even the fight against terror or the fight against other sophisticated crime can be an excuse for extrajudicial executions. I want to say I have received some complaints in line with what the member has said. I have already referred those complaints to the relevant policing authorities. And I can assure you, Mr. Speaker and the House, that this government, this administration, does not condone the use of the apparatus, the security apparatus of the state to kill people or to execute the people of Kenya outside the law. And that's why we refer to it as extrajudicial killings, meaning there are judicial ways of removing people from the world. But extrajudicial killings are unlawful killings, and we do not tolerate that at all. With regard to counter-terrorism county plans, I think we want actually we've already mapped out, and I think about 19 counties have adopted as such, spearheaded by the National Center on Counter-Terrorism. And we want to make communities and local leaders own those strategy plans and programs so that we just support them as a way of making sure that they are sustainably processed. On the question of boundaries, about 34 or thereabout counties in this country have some discussions about beacons between this county and the other. That discussion is not new, it's very old. Neither is it unique to Kenya. Boundaries are always points for discussion world over, even among nations. Therefore, the fact that about more than half, maybe 3/4 of the counties in Kenya, one county has an issue around where they think the boundary is with the other, it's not unique. Also, the emotive nature of boundaries and beacons makes it difficult to have an instant solution. And most of the discussions and conflict resolution around boundaries takes a bit of time so that you can carry on board those communities so that even after putting the beacon, those communities can still continue existing together. What is unique to us in Kenya and what is not permissible is introducing crime in the discussion around boundaries. We in various spaces have increasingly introduced violence and crime in discussions around boundaries. And therefore, for us as security managers and law enforcers, we will urge our fellow countrymen to remove violence and crime from discussions around boundaries and let the other civilian discussion around boundaries continue. And we in the ministry will facilitate those discussions as quickly as possible, but within the law and peacefully. And therefore, even as we go towards the review of boundaries, we have mapped out that this is a red flag for us in the security sector. Religion, color, creed, to jeopardize, pretending that they are defending a boundary. Let them use legal, peaceful, and lawful methods to defend boundaries. And Mr. Speaker, I know I'm going to get into a lot of trouble with many of my friends because when crime visits the things that we do on an everyday basis, then we'll part ways with so many people, including my dear friends. We must resolve our grievances peacefully, amicably, within the law. It doesn't matter how long it takes, and it is possible. But to incite communities against each other, to incite a community to go and attack another and take their property, to incite the community that is offended to take up arms and go and retaliate and revenge, that is not acceptable. No country is ever built on such foundation. So to answer the member, yes, boundaries, there are issues around boundaries, but the upsurge of crime is resulting from people who want to benefit from a genuine grievance to perpetuate crime for whatever reason, maybe commercial, political, etc. So as the boundary disputes escalate, we'll escalate the enforcement of the law. Honorable Speaker, I've also been asked to comment about Kamukunji, although it was a different matter about the command. Yes, I received the letter from the Member of Parliament for Kamukunji. I have requested the Inspector General of Police to address that anomaly. I promise the member that that matter will be resolved as soon as possible. Finally, maybe two last ones. The member for Laikipia North asked about the measures we are taking to mop out small arms and light weapons. Three things. One is voluntary surrender of arms, and we have made some progress on voluntary surrender of arms. And I must commend Samburu County, which is the leading in terms of voluntary surrender among the counties where we are encouraging a program of voluntary surrender of firearms. At an appropriate time in the coming, in the weeks, months ahead, we will also engage in some places with involuntary mopping out of weapons or disarmament, forceful disarmament. And therefore, any Kenyan who has in their custody an illegal firearm is hereby asked to give that firearm to the local chief or to the village elder or to any leader, to any government office. If they don't, we will come for it at some point. We're just making other interventions to make sure that when that time comes, we will recover all what we want to recover. And finally, we are also zeroing down on the enablers, benefactors, beneficiaries, abettors, and assessors. Those accessories, those who are abettors, accessories, benefactors, beneficiaries, and enablers of poor people who have no food, but who can afford an AK-47 and endless supply of ammunition. I am afraid that we will have to prosecute a number of people, including high-ranking people in Kenyan society. No amount of noise, politicization, ethnicization, or any other maneuver will distract us from securing Kenya from people whose business and trade is in the blood of the people of Kenya. They buy expensive firearms, give poor boys who have never been in school, who have no food, who have nothing, to go and kill people, collect property, which property, much of it goes into the hands of merchants. I want to report, therefore, we've made a lot of progress in profiling the major catalysts, beneficiaries, benefactors, financiers, spiritual leaders, and political godfathers of crime who perpetuate the crime of banditry, other crimes, by stockpiling small arms and light weapons, giving it to innocent citizens of Kenya to kill their fellow citizens simply because they come from a different ethnicity. So, again, Mr. Speaker, next time maybe I come here, I'll expect some reactions because we will be fair. We respect all leaders. We have a lot of respect for elected leaders, but we have no respect for criminals. Lastly, Kisii and Nyamira of late has witnessed gang crime. And not just Kisii and Nyamira, but also Nakuru. There has been a resurgence, a bit of Nairobi. We had made a lot of progress in Nairobi, but increasingly we have assessed the threats in those key areas, including Mombasa, and we are witnessing a reemergence of well-organized gangs of young boys and sometimes girls, hardly 20 years, who are killing people, stabbing them, robbing them. And part of our strategy as we go to the festive year is to crack down on those guns. I think Nakuru already, we have made some good progress, but I want to admit and agree with the member for Bamachoge, the Honorable Alpha Miruka, that the situation in Kisii and Nyamira in terms of gun violence is a situation that requires a continuous and enhanced enforcement, and we are on it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister, I think you should have also told Ariko that he should look at Article 188 of the Constitution on alteration of county boundaries. The ball is in court of this Parliament. You have not passed the law that would help deal with boundary disputes between counties. I know there are many people who want to ask questions on this, but we must make progress. Honorable Gideon Mulyungi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to ask question number 017 of 2023, which I had asked through private notice. And Mr. Speaker, according to our standing orders, a question under private notice is urgent.
Just ask the question. That is common knowledge.
It's an emergency.
Yes. Ask the question.
So this may have gone stale. Mr. Speaker, could the CS clarify the actions taken by the ministry to apprehend suspected armed bandits who have been traversing Mwingi Central constituency, particularly in the Ukasi to Waita area, in the month of October 2023, terrorizing and killing local residents, and leading to fleeing from their homes to seek refuge in forests and shopping centers? Number 2, could the CS explain the actions taken to ensure swift response from security agents on intelligence reports from the residents, considering the laxity in response by the state security agents? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Muriungi. Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, it is true that there have been cases of insecurity in Mwingi Central and Mwingi North. And last month, I toured that general area. And the measures that we are taking include, first of all, making sure that we manage the perennial conflicts between herders and farmers in that area. And already the security committees, with the participation of elders and local leaders, are addressing, are coming up with a framework of how to manage the perennial disputes that lead to altercations and loss of life from time to time. Number 2, we have had cases of marauding gunmen spotted severally. Some of those gunmen have killed our people. I think we've had at least 2 murders in that region. But there's one particular lone gunman who had been spotted several places. He had killed, I think, 2 Kenyans, was attacking people, robbing them on the highway somewhere around Ukasi as you come to Mwingi. And about 10 days ago, he had a date with justice because after robbing some civilians, he was attempting to rob some police officers who were on duty, not knowing that that was the end of him. So when he tried to rob them and shoot at them, there was some exchange of fire, and we gunned him down, and many people came to give evidence. That's one of the people who have been terrorizing residents and killing people in that area. Other than that, Honorable Speaker, we are encouraging, or rather we are establishing more presence of elite police units in that area to make sure that we tame this problem. And already, I think last month, we established the special forces at Mandongoi, and we're in the process of setting up a few others in the coming weeks, and find a lasting solution to the insecurity in Mwingi North and Mwingi Central. And generally, Kitui region, including Kitui South, where also there have been cases of insecurity emanating from Kitui South National Reserve. And the Mwingi side, the threat has been emanating from Mwingi North Game Reserve. We are in discussions with the KWS and the county governments who jointly manage those game reserves. Those 2 game reserves and the Turkana South Game Reserves, going forward, we may just have to take them over, gazette them, and remove everybody, and maybe relocate the animals as an extreme measure, because for a long time, there have been sources of insecurity to the adjoining communities. I submit.
Muriungi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, CS, for answering that question. Mr. Speaker, I would like the CS to clarify why an incident that is reported 5 kilometers away at 8 p.m. and the resident is shot dead at 9 p.m. and the police arrive the following day at 10 a.m. The person was shot dead at 9 p.m., an hour after the case was reported. Number 2, Does the government have appropriate technology, equipment, machinery, and gadgets, or even sniffer dogs to train such rogue lone bandits to their hideouts? Because the police officers, sometimes they are scared of getting to the bush to follow such kind of people, or even aerial cameras which can see through the bush. Finally, I want to thank you, finally, Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to thank the 2 officers who eliminated this wrong lone bandit. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Oundo.
Thank you, Speaker. And I just want to appreciate the statement by the CS concerning heightened alertness during this holiday season. And I would also urge him to include Busia County in matters of this heightened security surveillance, and specifically Funyula constituency, because of the emergence of a ragtag gang called 32 Brothers that normally consist of school-going children of about 14 to 18 years. I would just urge him to ensure there is heightened surveillance during this holiday so that we minimize cases of stabbing, robbery, and violent attack. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yes, Naomi Wako.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mine will be brief. Marsabit County has shooting and killing people and doing so many bad things within the town, and especially Saku town. It is becoming too much, and as we approach festive seasons, many people are getting scared of their lives. Can the Cabinet Secretary tell us the plans they have in order to take care of that? Because I know the reports have reached his office. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I just wish to make a follow-up question to the Cabinet Secretary. He has given very elaborate explanation on how they want to make the police more efficient in ensuring that there is security. But I would like to ask, are there any plans to use modern technology in improving safety and security? For example, the use of body cameras by police so that you can know what time they responded, who they interacted with, who they spoke to, when people reported, and that you can know that they were actually on duty when they are supposed to be on duty. That is a modern way that the police services all over the world are working, but there is no mention of use of body cameras, so that we can ensure that our police are actually on duty and doing the best that they can. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Maklap. Give him the mic.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to seek clarification from the minister when he came here some times back. He promised that there are administrative units that were cassetted, but they have not been operationalized, and he promised that after the budget, he will be able to operationalize those administrative units. Secondly, Speaker, I'm speaking as a member of parliament from our constituency that has been a victim. And I speak here, my students from Garatuko did not finish the exam well as they were rated in school. And as I speak here, I have one man in the mortuary that is due for burial. When can the minister be able to address this menace once and for all? Because from a long time, Baringo North has been a victim throughout, especially now that they are even close to school. Bandits who are school children are looking for fees. They will come and raid my place to steal cows so that they can get fees for January. Mr. Speaker, how can this matter be taken seriously now?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, in response to the question raised by the member for Mwingi Central, I think the incident he's talking about was caused by operational challenges, which have since been addressed. But I must say most of the officers serving in security-sensitive areas are doing a good job. They are trying their best. What is humanly possible? But sometimes we do get operational challenges for reasons which I'll explain in a short while. And number two is the person who was shot, we got his identity, because I wanted to clarify, Mr. Speaker, because this issue of extrajudicial killings, what sometimes is mixed with the fight against crime. This is a person who wanted to kill police officers because he had killed so many people.
The member has congratulated your police for killing.
Yes, so I wanted to give the name because it's a person who is known. The fellow is called Nur Musafa, 36 years old, and many residents came and testified and said, this is the one who killed my person, and so forth and so on. And actually he was in the process of trying to liquidate 2 officers whom he had stopped in the middle of the road at night. Honorable Speaker, I've been asked also by the same member for Mwingi Central about whether we have the equipment. We do, including the new units we have set up in Mandongoi, which is not very far from Mukasi, including the sniffer dogs the member was talking about. But I also want to say that because of several years of low investment in our police forces, we have found it necessary to modernize the equipment we have, including the question of technology, which was raised by the member for Sinigishu. And therefore, the government has approved a budget of 25 billion to buy better equipment, including protective mobility vehicles, MRAPs, APCs, modernize other equipment, including aerial unmanned vehicles, drones, and so forth and so on. And the issue of cameras, I think, will be part of that modernization program so that we can be able to put our police to the next level. And that process has begun. Going forward, the people of Kenya can expect better services and better responses from our security agencies. And more importantly, we want to ensure that these bandits, terrorists, and criminals find it difficult, if not impossible, to bring down our officers, because we have lost a few, and it is very painful when an officer wearing the uniform of our country is brought down by a criminal. And therefore, that modernization program will go a long way in making sure that we are even better prepared in the days ahead. Honorable Speaker, I agree with a member, I think from one of the constituencies in Busia, who talked about Busia town. Funyula. Member for Funyula.
You call them 32 brothers.
It is true. Are they 32 or 42?
32 is it.
Now, it is true, when we have done our weekly threat assessment, which we do every week, and as we go towards the festive season, these gang-related crimes, over and above the towns I cited, I agree that we also have a similar problem in Busia, Kirinyaga, Kilgoya Kutus, and Madogo town around in Tana River, as well as Marsabit town. And we have put all those places on the radar. The magic we used in Nairobi last year in September, when thuggery was everywhere. We know what to do, and it's just a matter of time we will normalize the security of our people. Honorable Speaker, unless I've forgotten something else, yeah, the one by the member for Baringo North, I'm a frequent visitor in that part of the country because of the challenges there. And I want to agree with the member that the suffering our people have gone through in that part of the world and other similarly situated areas require a lot of effort. But I must say also we must all pull from the same direction. What bandits and terrorists will want us to do is to quarrel among ourselves. The political leaders on one side, the security agencies on the other side, and then in the middle, they will succeed. So I want to agree with the member for Baringo North And to answer his two questions, the first one, I promised that we had so many administrative units which we inherited, some gazetted way back in 2017, others in 2022, and we do not have enough resources to operationalize all of them at the same time. But we promised in areas facing security challenges, all the administrative units that have been gazetted already will be operationalized this financial year. And therefore, it's just taken a bit of time, but I want to promise to the House that all the administrative units that were gazetted in all the areas we are having security challenges will be operationalized this year. And for the rest of the country, we will operationalize all of them within the next 3 financial years because of the budgetary constraints. We give first priority to the most affected areas. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Peter Kaluma. Question 018.
Yes, I thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity to ask question number 018 of 2023. This is a question, Honorable Speaker, to the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and National Administration. Could the Cabinet Secretary, 1, provide a report on the status of investigations into the tragic killing of Ms. Faith Adongo Owino of National Identity Card number 422-96965, a first-year student at Pwani University, following multiple knife stabs by assailants on the evening of Friday, 20th October 2023 in Kilifi Town. 2, outline the specific actions that have been taken to ensure the apprehension of the individuals responsible for the grievous attack on the student, which resulted in an untimely demise, which was reported to Kilifi County Directorate of Criminal Investigations as incidents number OB62-20-10-2023. Number 3, explain the collaborative efforts between the local enforcement agencies and the community to identify and bring to justice those responsible for terrorizing the communities and students in the Msifuni area in Kilifi Town, and further elucidate on the measures to enhance security thereat. Honorable Speaker, I'm dropping the 4th part of the question. This student was buried last Friday, so government assistance towards that aspect in the 4th part, or the last part, is no longer necessary. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, sir, on 20th October 2023, Faith Adongo Owino, a first-year Bachelor of Arts degree student at Pwani University, left our residence at 8 a.m. within Kilifi Town, a place called Musufini. This is about 1 kilometer away from the university. She went to the university and she had a group discussion with classmates. Later on, she met a friend. Between 2 o'clock on the same day and 6:50 p.m., she visited another female friend in Kibaoni area and passed through the university as she was going back to her house. She was carrying a small bag, a phone, a notebook, an ID. She was attacked on her way as she left the university near the main library. And she was stabbed. She's cramped. After the stabs, she cramped. And some well-wishers who were actually fellow students came to her rescue, took her to Murphy Hospital. Her condition was grave. She was directed to Kilifi County Teaching and Referral Hospital. Unfortunately, she succumbed at 11 p.m. the same day because of the stab wounds. Investigations ensued immediately, and within a day or two, some of their personal items, this girl, who is no longer with us, were recovered. Incidentally, they were recovered from one of the students who had come to rescue her. And therefore, we are analyzing the evidence, including DNA evidence, to connect the items, notably the notebook and the ID were recovered from one of the boys who had come to rescue her when she had screamed. And the student is called Joshua Nambuye. The Speaker, sir, and this is a third-year student, our DCI, especially the Crime Research and Intelligence Bureau, has also narrowed down to another person, Nelson Sifuma, a third-year student, who was arrested, led the police to his house, a rented house, and from his house, the mobile phone of the deceased was recovered. He was taken to court on 30th of October, and custodial orders of 10 days were granted by court, and the person will be charged in court with the murder of the late Faith Adongo Owino. The measures we have taken is that the Kilifi County Security and Intelligence Committee has visited the university. It has held meetings with the Vice Chancellor and the university management and the student leaders, and they have advised on how to enhance security within the university, including clearing the bushes in the footpaths between some of the facilities and others. Some of them are bushy, including street lights, installation of street lights around the university, and that engagement is ongoing, and also including cascading some kind of nyumba kumi among the students who live outside the university, so that we can have information sharing when things like this happen in future. Once again, Mr. Speaker, we are sure we have the right person in custody and justice will be served.
Kaluma.
Mr. Speaker, I'm satisfied by the response
Thank you.
of the Cabinet Secretary, and maybe just to request that the matter be followed up to the end. If there are any aspects of investigations which remain, they be concluded so that justice can be done to the victim and the victim's family. Honorable Speaker, this is a young girl we have educated from secondary level through the National Government Constituency Development Fund. And I remember we had to assist even in getting her body buried. I'm grateful for the intervention so far. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, Cabinet Minister by John Makale MP Kandui will be deferred. The member has requested so. They have acceded. Question 197, Honorable Zamzam, member for Mombasa. She's not here. There's no communication with the chair. Question dropped. Next question, 198 by Paul Nzengu, member for Mwingi North. Give Honorable Nzengu. Go ahead, Mheshimiwa.
Yeah, I'm just getting the question, Mr. Speaker. Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I rise to ask question number 198 of 2023 to the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and National Administration. Can the Cabinet Secretary explain the status of investigations into the death of Mr. Mugo Muthengi of ID number 277-83855, a prison warden who was stationed at Thika prisons and mysteriously died on 13th of October 2021, as reported at Thika police station via OB number 126/14/10/2021. And part 2 of that question, can the Cabinet Secretary state if any suspect has been apprehended or questioned in connection with the death of the officer, and explain if anyone has already been prosecuted to that effect? I thank you, Speaker.
Minister.
Honorable Speaker, Mua Mutengi, a prison warden who was stationed at Thika GK prison, died on 13th October 2021 while he was being treated at Nairobi West Hospital. Prior to his death and subsequent arraignment in court on 3rd May 2021, or rather, prior to his death, Honorable Speaker, the deceased was under interdiction from the Kenya Prisons Service because he had been arrested and arraigned in court and charged on 3rd May 2021 for obtaining money by false pretenses, contrary to Section 313 of the Penal Code, and the criminal case number is number 262/221/2021. Honorable Speaker, on 28th June 2021, the deceased had also been arraigned in court again and had been charged with different offenses, this time round rape and other sexual offenses. And that's why he had been interdicted. And the case, of course, the sexual offenses and rape case was later on withdrawn by the complainant under Section 204 of the Criminal Procedure Code. Honorable Speaker, investigations established that on 11th October 2021, a report was received by members of the public that there was a person who was being subjected to mob justice in Thika at the stage, near the stage. And when the team responded, they found the deceased was actually the subject of mob justice. He was being attacked for allegedly extorting money from members of the public and robbing them. On 18th October 2021, the chief government pathologist, Dr. Johansen Oduor, performed a postmortem where he formed the opinion that the person died as a result of head injury due to blunt force trauma caused by the attack by members of the public during the mob justice. An inquiry file has been opened at Thika West Sub-County Criminal Investigation Officer, and then the file was forwarded to DPP, and the DPP opined that this matter, given the circumstances in which the deceased met his death, this matter would be properly disposed of through a public inquest. And an inquest has been registered at Thika Law Court, vide inquest number E006 of 2022. The inquest, the hearing of the inquest started on 1st May 2022, and it's ongoing, and therefore the only one last thing I would add about this particular case is that on the request of the family of the deceased, the inquest hearing was transferred from Thika Law Courts to Ruiru Law Courts, and it is it's Ruiru Inquest number 1 of 2022. That is the file number. The inquest is still pending at Ruiru, therefore, and is scheduled for hearing. That's all. This is a person who had a criminal record, who had been charged for various offenses, and who was attacked by a mob who were accusing him of robbing people and extorting money. Unfortunately, the injuries he received caused his death in hospital. By the time he died, he was under interdiction from the Kenya Prison Service.
Honorable Nzengul, from the facts given to the House, don't you think any further interrogation of this judicial matter will undermine the process of the inquest. My advice is that having gotten those facts, you leave it there and we let the inquest take its course so that justice is done either for the person for whom you're asking the question or for those who are complaining. Thank you.
Speaker, I'm well guided, but can I ask a supplementary question?
Go ahead.
Speaker, thank you very much. To the Cabinet Secretary, it's about the Gishu sub-county that was awarded sub-county in 2016.
Oh no, I can only allow you to ask a supplementary on your question, which we have agreed with you, and you say you are properly guided. Now you're asking a totally different question. Okay, go ahead and ambush him.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There is a sub-county in my constituency called Tagishu sub-county.
Now listen to that ambush.
Which was created in 2016, and he happened to have been at that time with the president when it was created. That sub-county is not operational because it has a DCC who has no vehicle, who has no office, who has no house to stay. So it's completely in chaos and it does not have a code. So they cannot receive any funding from the government. They cannot do recruitment. Literally, there is nothing, although we have a DCC. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm familiar with Tagishu sub-county, and I confirm that that sub-county is in great need. No vehicle, no office, no nothing for the DCC. I also confirm that His Excellency the President visited Tagishu in Mwingi North on January 15, and he directed that we provide the office, vehicle, and all the facilitation that is required for the DCC. I confirm to the member for Mwingi North and the House that we have put resources in this financial budget. The DCC will have an office, a residence, and a car.
Thank you. Question 201 of 2023, member for Kitutu Masaba. Honorable Gisairo Ombane.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask question number 201 of 2023. Could the Cabinet Secretary, number one, provide an update on the progress made on investigations into the gruesome murder of Mr. Edward Morema Nyagechi, ID number 0407390, and Mama Grace Morema, ID 7573919, which occurred on the 21st March 2023 at their home in Nyamakoroto, Kitutu Masaba constituency. Number two, clarify whether the murder of the couple is in any way linked to that of their son, the late Professor Zachary Mosoti, ID 4128837. Adon at UND, state the measures the ministry has undertaken to enhance security within Nyamakoroto location and the entire constituency to guarantee residents of their safety at all times. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, sir, in March 2023, the Director of Criminal Investigations detailed a team of homicide, a team from the homicide unit to spearhead investigations into the murder of Edward Morema Nyagechi and his dear wife, Grace Mongina Morema, whose bodies were found in their matrimonial home in the morning of 21st March 2023 by the house help and the farm hand. After forensic investigations, we've been able to arrest a number of suspects, and they have been arraigned in court as follows: Ezekiel Migiro, Dennis Clement Ondara, Paris Ondara, and Peter Njoroge Kirika. These four suspects were arrested differently in different locations, and during the arrests, Dennis Clement Ondara was found armed with the with an illegal pistol in Isebania town. Forensic analysis detailed a schemed elimination, a plan that was hatched by Perry Sondara and executed by her brother, Dennis Clement Ondara, with the aid of the remaining two. Perry Sondara was found to be the second wife of the late Professor Zachary Musoti, who is related to the deceased because the deceased was the uncle and the aunt respectively. And our marriage, that is the marriage of Perry Sondara, to the said, sorry, I think, let me take this again, Mr. Speaker. Forensic analysis detailed a schemed elimination plan that was hatched by Perry Sondara and executed by her brother Dennis Clement Ondara with the aid of the remaining two. Perry Sondara was found to be the second wife of the late Professor Zachary Musoti. Her marriage was to the said professor led him to separating with the first wife, Gladys Kerubo. We've made some progress in the investigations. One of the things we have found out, as I've said, Mr. Speaker, is that the late Professor Zachary Musoti, or rather after the death of the late Professor Zachary Musoti, after his death, Edward Morema, the uncle, embarked on an effort to bring back the late professor's first wife, Gladys Kerubo, and to reinstate her back into the Aruai home, which was now being occupied by the second wife, Perry Sondara. This did not go well with Perez, hence planning with her brother on the execution plan. The said Dennis Clement Ondara, Peter Njoroge, and the other three were established to be a gang of criminals with active robbery cases pending before Makandara Law Courts and Ruiru Law Courts. They met in Committee Prison and became friends and continued after their life in prison to commit the crimes they have been committing in the past. They have been arraigned before Nyamira High Court in diverse dates between 11th May 2023 and 22nd May 2023. All of them are pleaded not guilty, but we believe we have the right people in custody, and we have charged them with murder contrary to Section 203 of the Penal Code, as read with Section 204 of the Penal Code. And they have been denied bail. They are in custody at Kisii GK Prison awaiting trial. And the matter is pending before Nyamira High Court and is scheduled for hearing, actually has been heard, the hearing, because it's 16th to 19th October 2023. Speaker, on 10th December 2021, at Kamulu Police Station, Mr. Fred Bosire reported the murder of Professor Zachary Musoti, a lecturer at USIU. Police went to the scene. They found the late professor dead with some tablets in his mouth, suspected to be sex-enhancing tablets. The door was slightly open, suggesting that somebody had left that building, according to the investigations up to now. Now, when we processed the scene and moved the body, we have now established through DNA analysis that what killed the late professor, Zachary Musoti, is asphyxia due to neck compression, a sign of manual strangulation. And therefore, the drugs, the sex enhancement drug could have been diversionally planted on the late professor. It was established that the deceased was married to two wives, Gladys Musoti, 51 years, works with the Ministry of Agriculture, and he had two kids. The second wife, Peris Ondara, 39 years, a teacher, Tala Township Primary School in Kangudo. And by the time of his death, he had separated from the two wives due to suspected domestic issues, and he had gotten himself a girlfriend. That girlfriend, the day he was killed, he had gone to pick her from Jomo Kenyatta Airport. in his car. They traveled together, and when they reached somewhere in the CBD, their phones signals went off, and the next thing was the professor being found in his house in the circumstances I have explained, and the alleged girlfriend has never been found to date. And therefore, as I have said, their phones went off at CBD in Nairobi, and the girlfriend disappeared, has never been seen until now. In the course of investigations, Honorable Speaker, to establish the motive of the Nyamakoroto murders, it came out clearly that the deceased Edward Murema Nyagechi, who is an uncle to the late Professor Zachary Mosoti, was at the fore of making sure that the succession costs to the late professor's estate were shared equally between the first wife and the second wife, who is the second accused in the murder case. This arrangement seemed not to have gone well with the second wife, Peri Sondara, prompting her to hatch a plan to eliminate Edward Murema and his wife by hiring assassins who did the mission. In other words, this appears to be a family, a matrimonial dispute, and we have suspects, we've charged them, and we are still looking for the girl in whose company the late Professor Mosoti was just the night before he met his death. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Mbane.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, but the Cabinet Secretary has not responded to the third question, part of the question.
Enhancing security in the village.
State the measures the ministry has undertaken to enhance security within Nyamakoroto location and the entire constituency to guarantee residents of their safety at all times.
Minister.
I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker, it's true I didn't answer that part of the question. Honorable Speaker, the Ministry of Interior, through the National Police Service, has put measures to ensure the security and safety of the residents of Nyamakoroto location within Masaba North Sub-County and the entire constituency is maintained through regular patrols, collection and sharing of criminal intelligence within the area, community policing mechanisms, and Nyumba Kumi initiative have been enhanced to identify known criminals within the area and profiling them so that we engage in proactive rather than reactive policing. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Honorable Mbane.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm satisfied with the response on question 1 and 2. However, on question 3, Mr. Speaker, in the same area, I'm not aware whether the CS is informed that we've had actually increased crime within the same general area, Masaba North, with the most recent us having a family where there is a member of county assembly, a minister for education for the county, a school principal, all their families were held hostage for 7 hours. And while at that, we even had 2 school-going ladies gang raped throughout the 7 hours within the same area where the Honorable CS has stated that there is heightened security. Can we get guarantee that there is much more that is to be done and the ministry is really putting all its efforts towards ensuring that our people are safe? Thank you.
Minister.
Honorable Speaker, it is true we've had an unfortunate incident in the nature in which the Member of Parliament has explained. However, Honorable Speaker, I think we are almost getting the ringleaders of the violence in that general area. As I said, we are increasingly using technology-driven evidence-driven investigation so that by the time we arrest people, we are sure we'll win. It doesn't help rounding up young people, taking them to court, and then they are all acquitted. So we've made some progress there. I accept we are concerned with the rising cases of insecurity. Not just the member of parliament, but also even the senator for Nyamira has actually been to talk to me about the issue, and I want to promise the MP, the senator, the people of Nyamira, we are doing everything that we can to make sure that we restore peace and security in Nyamira, and I'll be visiting that part of the county in the coming 1 month, God willing.
Thank you. Member for Ndiwa. The member himself is satisfied. And it is his question. Yes, go ahead. Member
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
West Mugirango.
My name is Steve Mogaka from West Mugirango constituency, which is adjacent to Kitutu Masaba. And my honorable CS, my professor of law, must be knowing that I have laid before his desk serious issues that have contaminated my constituency from Kitutu Masaba, so that Nyamira South sub-county, which is in the West Mugirango constituency, we have lost a young man, the late Abiud Matara, who we are burying on Friday, killed by these gangs, and several homes raided 3 days consecutively in the biggest market of that county. The CS kindly, as you enhance the security in Masaba North, kindly include or cast your net to Nyamira South sub-county. And in particular, I make one humble request. After thanking you for promising the House that you are going to implement the subdivision of administrative units, would this not be such a case that can be dealt with as an exception, so that we operationalize those administrative units, so that we obviate the degeneration of security in this area? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Minister?
Honorable Speaker, I agree with the Honorable Steve Mogaka. He has actually written formally raising those issues. And when I visit Masaba, Kitutu Masaba, I will also visit his constituency. And I also agree with him that given the rising incidents of insecurity in that part of Nyamira, the gazetted administrative units should be operationalized in the first instance alongside others which have security stress in the other parts of the country, and therefore within this financial year we will honor that request for security reasons. But as I said, Speaker, sir, even other parts of the country we will operationalize, but we're just giving the first priority to areas which have serious strains on security because of budgetary constraints.
Yes, Atandi, what is the issue? Give Honorable Atandi the mic.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, because we are talking about these gangs, I wanted you, with your indulgence.
You also have some?
Yeah, there are these gangs in my constituency, and I think the cabinet minister is aware that I even raised questions to him. But what I wanted to report, Honorable Speaker, is that we lost many people because of these gangs. And we raised an issue because we suspected that the security officers in my constituency were also culprits. And I wanted to thank the Cabinet Secretary because, as a consequence, we have seen transfers that happened. The only issue which I wanted to alert him is that, as a consequence of those transfers, we have ended up with all senior officers coming from an ethnic community. And this is a very big issue on the ground. The county commander, the deputy county commander, the OCPD, the OCS, deputy OCS, OC crime, patrols officer, CCIO. They are all from one ethnic community. I don't want to mention their names. So I wanted you to check with us, because in that environment, it will not be able to serve our people in the right way. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Minister? He has just
Honourable Speaker, is that Game or Alego Songa?
Alego
Songa. Honourable Speaker, I agree with the Honourable Member for Alego Songa that we do not encourage security managers to congregate, in one place without reflecting national diversity. And therefore, I'll take up the request by the Honourable Member for Alego Songa, and will make the necessary adjustments to make sure that the face of the police command in that constituency reflects as much diversity as possible.
Thank you, Minister. Martin Owino.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Question 203, 2023.
I appreciate the time, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask question number 203, 2023 to the CS. Considering that the 2019 Kenya Housing and Population Census reported that Ndiwa constituency with 7 wards and a population of 218,136 people and land size of 713 square kilometers. Honorable Speaker, could the CS explain steps the minister is undertaking towards subdividing the constituency into 3 operational and adequately staffed administrative sub-counties, and correspondingly divisions, locations, sub-locations thereof, to enhance effective and efficient delivery of national government services to the people, and within what time frame? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, sir, it is true that we have received proposals for subdivision of the current Ndigwa sub-county within Ndigwa constituency into 3 sub-counties, which are Ndigwa East, which will be a new sub-county with the headquarters in Luanda Kobita, Ndigwa West, a new sub-county to be with headquarters to be at Ratanga, and now Ndigwa Central, which will be the remnant of the existing sub-county. Mr. Speaker, sir, having looked at the proposals to split Ndigwa, not only into more sub-counties, but also divisions, locations, and sub-locations, it is our assessment using the criteria that we use for creation of new administrative units that Ndigwa merits subdivision. However, Honorable Speaker, the implementation of that request from Ndigwa is going to take a while for the reason I have given. Our ministry is constrained tremendously in terms of resources. Putting up a new sub-county means setting up an infrastructure for the DCC, the heads of department. There must be a vote, there must be a vehicle, there must be recurrent expenditure.
Order, Honorable. Is that Honorable Mwenje? You can hold your Kamkunji out of there.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The other day you were fighting vicious with Sabina Chege. Now you are animated in discussions in the House. Yes. The handing over Elachi, you should supervise it out there. Go on.
Reminds me of the old good days, Honorable Speaker. My days in the legislature. Yes. Now, Honorable Speaker, Ndigwa merits the proposed subdivisions. Unfortunately, due to budgetary constraints, we cannot implement that request now. We will implement new requests after we finalize with the already gazetted administrative units that have not been implemented. And therefore, I'm unable to give a specific timeline, but I give my commitment to the Member of Parliament for Ndiwa and to the House that Ndiwa is merit, and as soon as we finish the backlog of the already gazetted units, when we are doing the next phase, Ndiwa, among other requests I've seen, including the request from Tiati and other places I've been, in many of these places, including Baringo North and so many places I can see members are looking at me. I have very, very merited requests, which I think we will put a priority on, and Member for Ndiwa will bear with us, but we have his information, and the information from Ndiwa on record will give it priority in the shortest time possible.
Then that should.
Thank you, Speaker. I appreciate the acknowledgement and the merit that Ndiwa deserves this. But Mr. Speaker, as he said earlier also, prevention is equally important. Even if the resources are scarce, and we all acknowledge that, CS, Mr. Speaker would also ask, when can it be gazetted? Really, that does not take a lot of money, so that there is hope for the people that is gazetted. Now we are waiting for it to be set in operation.
Yes, Minister. Gazette and operationalize later.
The Speaker, I understand the member, and it helps sometimes to...
And I can see the TRTMB is also itching to ask the same question. I won't allow you. Let the minister just
Mr. Speaker,
cover you in that answer.
There is merit in what the member for Ndiwa is saying. We'll endeavor and gazette, perhaps not the entire proposal. We can gazette it in phases progressively by the end of this financial year, and then maybe the next financial year we gazette the other proposals. Again, because of budgetary constraints. But to answer, yes, and by the end of this financial year, we'll gazette, and then we operationalize in future on a priority basis.
Member for Kinango, Kwea Thuku. Is he here? Question dropped. Member for Kitutu Church, Andon Kibagende. Yes, Honorable Kamket.
Mr. Speaker.
Tiati was already mentioned by the minister that you are on the
It
queue.
was not mentioned favorably, Mr. Speaker.
Pardon?
It wasn't mentioned favorably. Mr. Speaker, I'm a very worried man because, Mr. Speaker, listening to the CS, where some of us come from, we urgently need the administrative units. And Mr. Speaker, when the Cabinet Secretary gives a verbal commitment, I understand where he's coming from in terms of...
you want him to respond to supplementaries? It can only be verbal.
Mr. Speaker, kindly indulge me for a moment.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, all I'm asking is this. If it is indeed agreeable, it doesn't cost much to gazette. It doesn't cost much. So all we're asking is that could the Cabinet Secretary, since it is agreeable, why don't he just gazette as we wait for the finances to operationalize? Like where I come from, Mr. Speaker, it's my constituency, we are suffering because of this lack of administrative units. And honorable member here, his constituency has 7 wards like mine. And the minister has made oral commitments even to the public in visits to those places. Now we are suffering politically. So I urge him to gazette as we wait for the money. That's all I'm asking, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, Minister.
But not by end of financial year. Surely gazettement can be done even tomorrow. Why does he wait for end of financial year to gazette?
Minister, I think that is just a comment.
Yeah, I think I've heard and I've engaged with the member for Tiati and many other members here, especially the member for Baringo North, the member for West, Kajiado West, many of these members. And on the question of Tiati, it is true that we did make some commitments, because for us to be able to achieve the security outcomes we want, a part of the solution for us in the Ministry of Interior is to add administrative units in many of the areas, including Tiati. And I want to assure the member that the minister will comply with the oral commitments they made to the public, because I'm a minister of the government of Kenya, whether I'm addressing parliament or I'm addressing wananchi, and therefore the gazettement will ensue. I only plead with the member not to pin me down to indicating the date of gazettement, but I will honor the commitment.
Anton Kibagendi, member for Kitutu Chache South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to ask question number 265 of 2023. Could the Cabinet Secretary state the measures being taken by the ministry to address the widespread abuse of drugs and banned substances in the country? Secondly, would he clarify whether there are sufficient rehabilitation centers available and adequate personnel through the NACADA to accommodate the large number of addicts seeking help and willing to undergo rehabilitation? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Minister.
Mr. Speaker, sir, in response to the question number 265 by the member for Kitutu Chache South, I respond as follows. That the government is taking measures through the Ministry of Interior and specifically the agency on the campaign against drug abuse, NACADA, to address the problem of drug addiction and the use or abuse of substances, including illicit alcohol and psychotropic substances. I've just returned this morning from Nyeri, where we were opening a NACADA accredited rehabilitation center set up by the Ministry of Interior in conjunction with the county government of Nyeri to provide rehabilitation. And we have several others. We have one in Miritini, and we have one in Elgeyo Marakwet, and we are taking the menace of drugs, illicit alcohol, and psychotropic substances as a major national security threat. In fact, we believe drug abuse, violent resolution of disputes, and climate change. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, sir, we are making arrangements to fight the menace in two fronts. One, to suppress the demand. And suppressing demand includes rehabilitation and treatment of those who are already in abusing these substances. And we are going to resource and mobilize enough resources for NACADA and other partners to improve our facilities for treatment and rehabilitation. The second strategy is to suppress the supply. We suppress the supply of drugs, illicit drugs, and psychotropic substances by making it very difficult for manufacturers of alcoholic drinks until we are satisfied these manufacturers at least meet very stringent licensing procedures, because we have all manner of manufacturers of alcoholic drinks manufacturing and selling concoctions of very unhealthy stuff, and this has caused a lot of addiction and health problems across the country. We are going to review all the existing licenses of manufacturers of second-generation alcoholic drinks and ask them to apply afresh, and they will meet very, very strict licensing requirements. Right now, we have declined the applications of 23 applications for licenses for second-generation manufacturers of alcohol because of this program. Thirdly, Honorable Speaker, we are introducing new laws, and very soon we will introduce in Parliament a law to strengthen NACADA, because the way NACADA is wired to that effect, and also we are investing in school programs to sensitize members, the children, the school-going children, universities, young people, and we want a greater, more resourced, more empowered, and more capacitated NACADA to partner with other stakeholders in that respect. So I do agree we have a real problem of abuse of these drugs. We will target also families, because we believe families are essential partners in terms of fighting this menace. We'll also make use of our rich network of national government administration officers who are spread across the country. As you're aware, Mr. Speaker, this administration has decided that national government administration officers will be used to mobilize communities and members of the public to support national objectives and not to engage in other auxiliary things like politics, as been the case before. National tree planting objectives, registration of farmers, distribution of fertilizer, but also ensuring our children are in school and our children and families are free from drugs and alcohol. So, Honorable Speaker, that is the work in progress. I summarize by saying that we view the trade, use, and consumption of drugs, illicit alcohol, and psychotropic substance as an existential threat to our country's future. It is a national security problem. We're going out of our way to resource our agencies and use our personnel to make sure that the same strength we are using to fight terror, banditry, and other national security threats, including climate change, will apply it in the fight against abuse of drugs, especially narcotic drugs and psychotropic substances. I submit.
Thank you, Minister. Kibagendi, you have a supplementary?
I truly, government has taken this up as one of the major issues they would like to deal with. I would wish that they enhance their, what can I call it? In this season that we are heading to, we need to increase surveillance with the children that are just completing their.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also want to thank the rate of foreigners engaging in drugs, especially on Demi Road, Dennis Garden, and Royal Nahaltal estates. It is becoming a menace that we can't deal with anymore. And I am pleading with Waziri that I need a serious team of security to at least invade the place, because I know our security team are sort of compromised. I'm sorry to say that. But also to look at the administration, which are the chiefs. They've been there for 10 years within Dagoretti North. I think it is time they also can go and serve somewhere else, and so that we are able to fight together. We have put in a ghetto marathon that we will do on Sunday, and I know I have written to you, so that we work with the security team and start engaging, especially the border borders who are being used, and also the young children who you see meddling all over this Kilimani area. They are being used to peddle these drugs. So I just wanted to inform you that, Waziri, and thank you so much for all the support you have also given us.
KJ.
Mr. Speaker, I truly thank you. Now, my questions and concerns have been, in part, been preempted by the Honorable Deputy Speaker and the Member of Parliament, Jirani Dagoretti North. My concern, Mr. Speaker, is, and I'll put it as a question, is the Cabinet Secretary and the Ministry considering a new approach to dealing with criminal elements, because it is now being proven that old methods are not hacking it, and especially in urban areas. Mr. Speaker, if they are depending on the Nyumba Kumi as they were formed in the era of PC Kaguthi, I can tell you for sure these Nyumba Kumis will never deliver. Mr. Speaker, I think it is time that they reconsidered the model of Nyumba Kumi. And they will find, after reconsidering, that there will be a different model that works in the urban areas as compared to rural areas, to commercial areas compared to residential areas, and so on. Secondly, for information and even for helping them combat crime in terms of identifying the criminals in the area. The issue that the Honorable Elachi is talking about is a real concern, Mr. Speaker, where left unattended to, these border riders become a threat to security, while we can convert them to actually be the keepers of peace in urban areas. They become the carriers of drugs, they become the carriers of even criminals. The incidences of people being shot by pillion passengers, riding 3 or 4 of them on one border, have become so rampant, especially in this southwestern area of Nairobi City. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity.
Minister will take a few requests on this.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and thank you, Waziri, for acknowledging that drug and substance abuse is an emerging problem in our country, and particularly also in my constituency of Runyenjes, where there is a very sharp rise in the intake of marijuana. Previously, people used to take marijuana during the night and while hiding, but in my constituency now, people are taking it in broad daylight. And Honorable Speaker, what I want to ask the CS is whether he is aware that the manufacturers of illicit alcohol, who are previously domiciled in my constituency of Runyenjes, have moved down to Mbeere North and Mbeere South, and even parts of Daraka, and are now doing it from there and sneaking it back to Runyenjes constituency. And in my own observation, I have seen that there is a correlation between this illicit alcohol, marijuana abuse, and crime rate. Is the CS aware that that is what is happening in Runyenjes constituency? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Sabina Chege.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the CS for the concern about drugs abuse in this country. Mr. Speaker, if you recall, there's a time I raised an issue about one of the addictive drugs which comes in as nicotine pouch called Velo. I'd like the minister to take some interest in it, because as we are talking about illegal drugs, there are some drugs that are being sold over the counter. They are easily accessible to our children, and we are letting them go. They are being imported from other countries to this nation. They are cheaply available, and so we are losing a whole generation, especially the children who are in high school and in colleges. So, Waziri, I would like you to take some keen interest and do some research on Velo, because that's a drug that I feel it should be banned with immediate effect. And secondly, Mr. Speaker, just a concern about NACADA. CS, the issue of drugs abuse is actually a health matter. And I hope as NACADA handles the issue of drugs abuse, it desists from criminalizing it and making it much more of a health concern. The fact that some people are actually arrested, if they are taking weed, they are taken to the prisons and then they are introduced. I hope our prisons, and when these arrests are done, they can work on rehabilitation. And finally, there is one commandant who is in Kiambu, and I think it's something that the other police officers should learn from, who is working with the police officers, with the church, and rehabilitating and offering even food and counseling to the drugs abusers, and it is working. So that's one of the ways that you can be able to adopt and come up with a way of awarding some of your officers who are doing a good job. The issues of drugs is an issue where there's a lot of money, so if you award them, they might seize the temptation of being given money by the drug barons and work for this nation. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, CS, for a good job.
Rosa Buyu.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the CS for the effort they are putting towards fighting drug abuse. Mr. Speaker, we are currently going through supplementary budgets, and we know that the office of the spouse of the deputy president is actually very keen on also fighting drug abuse and its effects and rehabilitating the young people. And we know that a lot of money is being channeled through that office. My question is the ministry working hand in hand with the office of the spouse of the deputy president, or they are working independently? Because if they are, then there's bound to be a lot of duplication in terms of areas that are being targeted and in terms of money that's going to wastage. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
On this, Njeri. DK, you also want to ask something? Njeri, then DK, then the minister, you.
Shukran, Mheshimiwa Spika. Ningetaka kuuliza waziri kuhusu kupotea kwa watoto pale Kirinyaga County, upande wa Kiamashiri na Kaminji kule Mwea. Watoto ambao wako na umri wa miaka 3 na 10.
Does it have anything to do with the drugs? This is on drugs. I'll give you an opportunity later. Let's not throw this minister into a spin. DK, you just hold in, Jerry. I'll give you an opportunity.
Thank you, Speaker. Mine might not be concerned with drugs as such.
Then don't ask.
But there's an urgent issue. I had raised a statement in the morning.
Yes.
And now that I have seen the Cabinet Secretary, it is important that, because a matter of importance where I come from, there is a lady by the name of Malaya who was killed on 4th in Matunda Market by gangsters, just 400 meters away from Matunda Police Station. And when an SOS was raised by the family, because they had an alarm to the police station, the answer was it wasn't within their jurisdiction, since where the lady was attacked and killed was in Gishu, and where the police station is stationed is in Western. So it raises a very fundamental issue to the CS. Is there a policy that bars police in one town center from just crossing the road and assisting Kenyans, rather than telling them to go around 10 kilometers to find their area of jurisdiction to call those police to assist? Thank you.
Minister, before the minister answers those supplementary members, it's now going to 6. I had wanted question time to end at 4. We've done an extra 2 hours. I want to seek your concurrence that we can end here and have the minister come and answer your other questions. Honorable, thank you, Honorable Bukosi. I hope you have read a book called A Bridge Too Far. I'll invite you to read a book called A Bridge Too Far. No. Yes. Okay, we can go on if you wish. The minister is here. I have no problem. Minister, can you answer those supplementaries? They're all just about policy.
Yes.
So tell us what you are doing in life.
Honorable
And
Speaker.
how you can convert borders into an asset.
Honorable Speaker, I agree with the very detailed proposals which have been made by various members. First, the member for Dagoretti South on the issue of changing tact, because we cannot use the same methods all the time. Times have changed. The composition of the population of Kenya in terms of mindset and values has changed over time. And therefore, we have begun those conversations in the ministry of what do we do differently if we want to move security to the next level, given the complexities of modern insecurity challenges that we are facing. And I agree with the member for Dagoretti South that the solution lies in the convergence between converting every member of the Kenyan society to an intelligence officer, first of all. And one, I say that because I know we have countries, which I don't want to name for diplomatic reasons, neighboring countries not far from Kenya, of even a lower GDP than Kenya, with even greater security challenges than Kenya. But there is a way in which every member of the community in some of those countries is an intelligence officer and provides information on security matters. So there must be some relooking at the way we look at security matters. It is not the responsibility of just the police officer to secure the country. It's our responsibility, all of us. A convergence between intelligence, technology, and values. And that is where we are going. And that is where we're going. Values, because as been said by the member for Dagoretti South and the member for Dagoretti North, my sister, the Honorable Elachi, if members of the public know that if they give intelligence, it will be acted on, they will give it. Number two, if we make it painful and embarrassing for a police officer to allow a drug trafficker to destroy our children, if we make it painful and embarrassing for that officer, we'll have less and less cases of officers who are aiding and abetting drug traffickers and other criminals. And I believe through the police reforms that we are about to receive the final report, we're going to clean up all the agencies of national security and make it impossible for people wearing the uniform of the country to be participants in crime. Even if it means restarting the agencies afresh, reforming them, dealing with succession management and leadership, so that not anybody becomes a commander, not everybody becomes a leader, and so forth and so on. So there is a solution lying somewhere between a review of the system, bringing together the convergence of intelligence, which is information, technology, and values. Honorable Speaker, the member for Runyenjes has talked about the problem in Runyenjes. I am aware of that problem. I think I have heard from yourself, but also the women rep of Embu has brought even clips of some of these transgressions, and we are working on a program to make sure that we reach out to the communities there through enforcement, but also through trying to talk to our children and bring them back from the vagaries of blunted abuse of drugs in the open, as it's very common now in that area. I'm aware of that problem, and I've even shared that with the women rep of Embu, Runyenjes, a bit of Bere North, and neighboring areas like Igamba Ngombe. Honorable Speaker, the Honorable Sabina Chege has raised the issue about Vero, and I believe that the Ministry of Health is working on a program that will help us classify Vero so that we can move to the enforcement mechanisms. I agree with the Honorable Chege that a proper reward and punishment program for officers who either do well or do badly can be a big motivator. And I'm saying this because I know from my experience in the last 1 year as the minister responsible for security, although we have some officers who may not have done a good job in terms of projecting our police and other agencies properly, we do have a number of very patriotic, honest, hardworking officers. Many of them go unnoticed. The sacrifices they make, the extent they go, with high levels of honesty, and therefore a reward and punishment program can help us motivate good officers and embarrass the bad ones, even as we reform our agencies. Honorable Speaker, I therefore want to also talk about the issue of jurisdiction, which has been raised by the member for Soy. And I think it is true for purposes of command, different police commanders have jurisdictional limits for purposes of coordination, command, control, and accountability. However, the policy of the National Police Service and of our policing is that a police officer of the Republic of Kenya is a police officer of Kenya. Is not a police officer of the place where they are stationed. And therefore, if they can save a life, if they can assist in apprehending offenders and doing these other things that affect our security, it doesn't matter. You cannot watch somebody being robbed next to you and you're a police officer. You have the capacity to thwart that attempt simply because it is across the road and that road is the boundary of your jurisdiction. So that particular matter, we would want to find details in terms of complaint, and we can follow it up with the policing authorities to make sure that no officer refuses to assist Kenyans in distress by simply citing jurisdictional limits. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, is there a follow-up question by the owner of the question? Who was the owner of the question?
No, it's the next one. Next question.
Oh, we are moving to the next question. Okay, Honorable Pukosa, proceed. Okay, I'll allow you, Honorable Buyu.
Madam Speaker, I want to thank you. My question, which was to the minister, was that there seemed to be duplication in terms of budgets because the office of the spouse of the deputy president already also has an allocation to fight the drug abuse, which NACADA is also doing. Is there duplication and is there dangers that we are going to spend money and duplicate activities? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Okay. Honorable Cabinet Secretary.
Honorable Speaker, the issue of drug control and the campaign against drugs is coordinated by the Minister of Interior. But Honorable Speaker, there are many other players and actors who support the cause. As I have said, earlier today, I was officiating the opening of a treatment and rehabilitation center in Nyeri, which many players have participated in is putting it up, including national and NACADA, county government, and others. And therefore, any stakeholder, including the spouse of the deputy president, contributing to this effort will find a home in NACADA as the coordinating agency so that we can pull together all our efforts and work together. I don't think we can prevent any support, any effort, because every stakeholder brings in value. Every stakeholder brings in value that is not available within the agencies we have. So I believe the coordinating framework is there, and all the stakeholders, including the spouse of the deputy president, will find a home in the NACADA, which is the coordinating agency for the campaign.
Thank you. Next question, Honorable Pukose, member for Endebess.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for allowing me to ask question number 266/2023 to the Cabinet Secretary. 1, could the Cabinet Secretary provide the status of investigation into the death of PC Emmanuel Kiprop, who hails from Endebess constituency, Kolongei village, who was killed by a mob in Kadanje Market, Tharaka Nithi County on 29th April 2023, and state whether the culprits have been arrested and what further action has been taken. 2, explain why the officer commanding police station, OCS of Kadwana Police Station, sent officers to carry out arrests without being armed and without wearing the official uniform while on duty. 3, outline the plans the ministry has to provide substantial support in the form of compensation to the grieving family following the loss of their son, who played a significant role in supporting their family. He was the sole breadwinner. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
We'll allow 2 supplementaries. Honorable Karoli Omondi, member for Suba South.
No, I think.
Sorry, you respond first. Okay, all right. You may proceed, Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, Madam Speaker. On 29th April 2023, PC Emmanuel Kiprop and Police Constable Kennedy Murithi from Kadwana Police Station within Tharaka Nithi County were on duty in Kadwana Market, where they had been assigned duties. At around 7:30 p.m. on the same day, the 2 officers were killed at Kandanje Market, which is about 5 kilometers away from Kadwana Market. Investigations revealed that while the officers were at Kandanje Market, Mr. Zacchaeus Murithi, who owns a shop within Kandanje Market, raised an alarm, and members of the public attacked the officers with crude weapons, fatally wounding them. Police processed the scene and later moved the bodies to the mortuary for preservation. Following the incident, investigations have ensued, and the circumstances of this unfortunate incident were relayed by the police to the office of the DPP, who advised the police to record the statement of the shop owner who raised the alarm, and as a result of that alarm, the violence ensued in form of mob justice, leading to the death of the officer in question. And the recording of the shop owner's statement has been done. It was done on 13 September this year. Then further guidance has been sought by the police from the DPP on whether to charge the shop owner or any other person who participated in the death of this officer, but that advice is being awaited, has not been supplied. I just want to make 2 points as I end on this response, Honorable Speaker. First is that the late police constable, Emmanuel Kiprop, had been assigned duties at Kadwana Market. However, it is not clear how he found himself outside the area he had been assigned by his superiors, namely Kandanje Market, 5 kilometers away. That is part of the ongoing investigation to find out under whose orders did he find himself there. And at the moment, as I have said, the file is still being processed between the police and the DPP. Number 2 is so far there are conflicting reports oscillating between the shop owner in Kandanya Market who raised the alarm, having complained that the 2 police officers had intruded in his shop, but there is also conflicting reports that those officers actually were going to search for certain crime-related evidence from the shop owner when they met their death. It is not very clear whether instructions had been given for them to go and arrest the person whose alarm led to the unfortunate death of Mr. Kiprop. Finally, in terms of the question on compensation, the National Police Service insurance scheme has provided what happens when an officer dies in the line of duty, and therefore issues to do with reparations for the loss of Police Constable Kiprop will be pursued within the avenues of the police insurance scheme, which takes care of fatalities of police officers when in the line of duty. I submit.
Honorable Pukose, you may give your supplementary.
Madam Speaker, I want to thank the CS for the response, but unfortunately, he has not fully answered the question. Because when you look at the dates, this incident happened on 29th April 2023. They go to the DPP is ordering them to take a statement from the owner of the shop in September 13th. You can see how many months it is gone, because, and I don't know whether that is the normal police procedure. Because, you know, I know the CS is a PC man, but when you, the gaps in between, there is a lot of gaps in between the investigations, the date at which the police officer was killed, and even up to now, what has been done to ascertain the cause and to arrest those who are the culprits who are concerned. And in my first question, I had asked whether the culprits have been arrested and what action has been taken, because up to now, no culprit has been arrested. This is somebody who was killed on April from the shop owner in September. Madam Speaker, without being armed and without wearing the official uniform while on duty. That has not been responded by the CS. On the compensation, which is covered under the WIPA, Workman's Compensation, I expected that the CS could also be able to assure the family, and I know, and the people of Kolonge in Endebess, that the process of compensation, because these are people who are, at times they are illiterate, they might not even understand. They need to understand the process of compensation, how far the police are working to assist the family to make sure that the compensation is done. And CS, when the OCBD attended the funeral of this officer, he committed himself that even one of the family's members was going to be recruited as a police officer to take care of the family. So the family are waiting to hear whether that is also possible. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Allow the member for Baringo Central, Baringo South, Honorable Kamurian, to have a supplementary.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I stand to ask the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and National Administration, could the Cabinet Secretary explain why bandits are still occupying areas declared occupied area declared as disturbed and dangerous in Baringo South constituency?
Allow him to ask, and then the CS will take them together.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
No, you feel, I know you feel like your question wasn't asked. Yes, you will have an opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you,
You
Speaker.
repeated your question. It was approved by the Speaker before he left for him to be able to ask it.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I stand to ask the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and National Administration. Could the Cabinet Secretary explain why bandits are still occupying areas declared as disturbed and dangerous in Baringo South constituency, and the delay in undertaking security operation to remove the bandits, and indicate the number of the National Police reservists that have been killed by bandits, and explain the support the affected families will get. 2, could the Cabinet Secretary provide reasons why there is indication of cover-up on the incident that involved the armed bandits attack at Kapentasum Primary School in Mukutane Ward on 24th October 2023, and further explain why innocent citizens, including journalists, teachers, local administrators, and National Police reservists have been summoned by the officers of the Department of Criminal Investigation, DCI at Cabernet, coercion to record a statement in relation to the incident. And number 3, could the Cabinet Secretary state when will the government weed out all the bandits from Tiati constituency in Arabal, Rukus, Mukutane locations of Baringo South constituency, and also state measures the government has put in place in resettling the IDVs of Arabal, Rukus, and Mukutane locations to their farms, and state the compensation stages. Thank you.
Okay, I think I'll give an opportunity to the Cabinet Secretary.
Honourable Speaker, I agree with the member for Endebess. I think to the extent that the investigations have been slow, I am going to take up with the agencies involved to ensure the matter is expedited. Secondly, Honourable Speaker, with regard to a process of compensation, I would advise the family to visit the local administrative office, most preferably the office of the nearest Deputy County Commissioner. They will be guided on the procedures that are followed when an officer dies while on duty, because all our officers are insured. And in the case of death, injury, the medical cover is able to compensate our officers. And I concur with the member for Endebess that some of the families of affected officers sometimes do not know the procedures, and that delays the process. And therefore advise that through perhaps the support and the advice of the MP, the family can visit the nearest Deputy County Commissioner and request for information on how to go about claiming benefits associated with the compensation of our departed officer. Honorable Speaker, the second question which has been asked, as an old parliamentarian, I would have expected the question to have been filed so that the minister can bring proper information. Nevertheless, I'll answer the question because you have said the speaker has approved the question. Because normally the questions are filed, written statements are prepared, and then the oral statements are provided by the minister, in which case he will also take supplementary questions. Nevertheless, Chair, I will go by your ruling and answer the question raised by...
Honorable CS, I think the impression that was given to the speaker is that the question by Honorable Kamuren was related to that one of Honorable Pukose. So if you are not, do not have the facts at hand,
I'm ready.
You can always
I'm ready, Chair. It was just a matter of procedure. I am ready.
Honorable Pukose.
You know, the member for Baringo South has really interfered with my question, because I asked the second part to the CS, which is why the officer commanding, and it's written, why the officer commanding station of Kadwana Police Station sent officers to carry out arrests without being armed and without wearing the official uniform while on duty. Then the second part of it, which I had said, is that the OCBD who attended the funeral, because I was there, assured the family that somebody from the family will be recruited into the police force. That's a and you know, my people of Endebess are watching.
Yes,
they want to hear what is the response from the CS.
I think, Honorable Pukose, on your third part of your question about compensation,
No,
I think
compensation has been answered.
It has been answered.
Yes.
That you, even as a member of parliament, can assist the family if they don't know, that they
No,
should go to the county
they
commissioner.
go to the DCC Endebess.
And you can also help them do
Yes,
that
I'll help.
as a member of.
The other one now, the other parts.
Madam Speaker, I partially answered the question by the member for Endebess in the sense that it is not clear up to now whether the late police constable Kiprop had been assigned duties in Kandanya Market. They are conflicting. I said they are conflicting testimonies that on one hand, they were sent to go there and conduct an arrest. That's how he met his death. Other witnesses say that there was no such orders. They had been assigned to work in Kadwana Market, and somehow it's not clear how they found themselves in Mr. Muridhi's shop in another market 5 kilometers away. And that is something that is being investigated. So I want to plead with the member to be patient. Where I agree with him completely is that the process has been slow. Number two, he has asked about the OCS. And given the facts of this case, I would have expected that perhaps the OCS testimony would shed light on whether he had actually sent them to conduct the operation they were conducting when they died, or if it is not true, then that can help us move forward. On the recruitment of a replacement, as you're aware, it is not in law, but I will follow up with my officers to establish if commitments have been made. Most of the time, we make those commitments in solidarity with our officers and their families because of the sacrifices they make. And I will follow up on the family and on behalf of the people of Endebess to make sure that that commitment is honored.
A member for Endebess, are you satisfied? Okay, I think I will let the Cabinet Secretary answer the... Yes, are you satisfied?
I should go on record to say I want to thank the Cabinet Secretary for those responses. I'm satisfied now. Thank you.
Thank you. No, Honorable Cameron, you already asked your question. Yes, that you so cleverly sneaked in. I think the Cabinet Secretary can answer them. If you say the Cabinet Secretary said he could answer them, are you able to answer them? Yes. The one for Honorable Cameron, or do you want to postpone it?
I want to answer.
Okay, proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I thank the member for Baringo South for the questions he has asked. Some of the questions are difficult, but we'll answer them in their difficulty. Because, number one, he is asking the minister to explain why bandits are still occupying areas which are gazetted. As you're aware, on 13th February 2023, we declared war on bandits in 6 counties of our country, including Baringo. That operation is ongoing. We have made successes, but we are not there yet. There is nothing unusual about that. When dealing with complicated crime like terror, banditry, and other sophisticated organized crime, the war takes some time. We have given commitments on behalf of the government of Kenya, on behalf of President Ruto, that whatever it takes to clean up the mess of banditry, which has been with us for decades, will go the long haul. And it's unfortunate if we start demoralizing our officers midway in the operation, unless as a country we have spare forces who can help us remove bandits, other than the police officers and Kenya Defense Forces and other organs of national security, including the National Police Reservists. So I'm careful as a minister to discourage my officers. I think we have tried our best. We are not there yet. We are on the way. 60%, 65% done. We will get there. The resolve is there, the commitment is there, the political goodwill, right from the commander-in-chief is there. We will succeed. And that's why I said I cannot answer that question fully because there is no answer. The answer is we are doing our best. Our officers are doing our best. I have trust in my officers, and we have lost a few, including a KDF officer we lost in Samburu, who was felled by bandits who ambushed him in Longawan 2 weeks ago. And you know, when officers watch us in the civilian space making some of these statements, it's very demoralizing. Unless we have an alternative force, which is constitutional and lawful, that will do the job that our officers are unable to do. We have not succeeded. We are on the way. We will succeed. Number two, how many NPRs have been killed by bandits? I don't know whether it's in connection with a particular constituency or generally in the operation area, and that's why I said questions like this should come in advance and in written form so that we understand you're asking from what date to what date, which area, so that we can give the numbers. But it is true, we have lost some NPRs, including one NPR who was killed by bandits in Baringo about a month ago. Another one was injured. We lost another one in Laikipia some times ago. We have lost a senior chief. And so the issue of how many, I don't know where. If I'm given the parameters, I can perhaps answer in a subsequent appearance. The government of Kenya has nothing to hide. If we lose an officer, we'll say, so we have lost an officer in the line of duty. And doesn't mean anything if a criminal, a terrorist, a bandit succeeds in hurting our officer. It will be foolhardy to hide because that is the nature of the occupational hazard within the space which our officers, including NPRs, operate. Number three, the member for Baringo South asked why, in his estimation, there is an attempted cover-up at an incident that happened in Kapindasum on 24th of October, 2023. Madam Speaker, on the date in question and the school that has been mentioned, it was claimed that bandits, 55 of them, according to some reports, I don't know how bandits were counted when they were in an active engagement, attacked a school called Kapindasum, which school I know because I've been there more than 3 times. And before this incident happened, I was planning to go back there because I even left some promises there, which I intend to honor to the fullest. I am fairly familiar with the area, and therefore it was alleged on that day, Honorable Speaker, approximately 55 bandits, according to the reports, attacked the school and also the GSU camp. And for 7 hours, there was exchange of fire for 7 hours. And then the children, there was some recording of some children sleeping in some classroom complaining and asking where the Minister for Security is to come and rescue them. And there was some media interviews from head teachers and other people about that attack. Madam Speaker, I would not like to say much about this event because it's under investigation. That brings me to the next question, which is, according to the member for Baringo South, why innocent people, including teachers and journalists and other stakeholders, are being harassed as a way, according to the member, of cover-up. I would like to say we are investigating the event that took place at Kapinda Sum, not to harass or cover up or inconvenience anybody, but to find out what exactly happened. Because up to now, the 7 hours of engagement between security forces and the bandits did not resort to a single casualty. Nobody was killed, nobody was injured. We have scanned that area with drones. We have not found the disturbance of the soil. We have not found any spent cartridges, except that we are informed there was a shootout for 7 hours in that school. And therefore, the investigations we are doing are to help us establish the truth of what exactly happened so that we take action. And that's it. And we are not arresting journalists. We are not asking teachers to record statements. We are just asking people who have information to help us understand what happened, and we have nothing to hide. When the inquiry is complete, we will share it with the people of Kenya. As I have said, a school being attacked by bandits, for the last 50 years, we've had those kind of incidents. So government has no interest in hiding an incident like that. We have had even worse attacks where there have been very many casualties, and we have reported and we've said we have had an attack here. So the issue of cover-up does not arise, and once the inquiries are over, we will share them with the members of the public.
Thank you, Cabinet Secretary.
The last one, I'm left with one, actually two. Let me answer them in a minute. The member for Baringo South asked, when will the bandits be removed and weeded out from Rugus, Mukutane, and all the other areas? I don't know. But we are doing whatever we can. Day and night, we don't sleep. We will not surrender, we will not retreat, we will not change our mind, we will not give in, we will reclaim any space and secure every part of our country. But we are not going to be harassed by anybody, because that way we will lose it. And the language of bandits and terrorists is to try and divide people, divide political leaders on one side, security agencies on one side, so that they can succeed. So I don't know when we will wipe out banditry, but we will. Lastly, what are the plans around compensating IDPs in Mukutane and other areas who have been affected? Again, this process has been on the table for a long time, but due to budgetary constraints, it has not moved for the last 5 years. Therefore, the IDPs in question is not a creation of the attack in Kapinda Sum or the recent attacks in the last few months. It's an old problem which we are committed to deal with. The same way we are committed to dealing with IDPs across the country, I want to promise Madam Speaker and the House that the IDPs in Mukutane who have been affected by the long decades of violence and banditry in Baringo will be resettled. We will mobilize enough resources, and under my watch, as long as I'm in this ministry, together with my colleagues, we'll go out of our way to make sure that that matter is closed, the same way other incidents of IDPs have been addressed across the country.
Thank you. Honorable Kaburen, I hope you now realize the injustice you occasion to not only your people, but also to the Office of the Cabinet Secretary when you don't bring a question in advance, because then you'd have had a more comprehensive question. And on this question, we won't have any rider questions, and I think since Honorable Bukosa is also satisfied with this question, there's no rider question, and we'll move to the next question by the Honorable Rael Kisiwai. We've indulged you enough, Honorable Kamburen. We have indulged you sufficiently. You're out of order. Proceed to the next question. The Honorable Member for West Pokot County, Honorable Rael Kasiwai. She's not here? Okay, she's not here. Then we'll go to the question. I think the Honorable Member for West Pokot County is not here. So we'll drop the question and we'll move to the next question, which is by the Honorable Member for Kinangop, Honorable Kwea Thuku. No, the Honorable Member for oh yeah, Thuku, your question was dropped, but no, don't respond. Let me see. Okay, let's proceed to the next. Oh yes, it's the Honorable Member for Wajir West, Honorable Yusuf Mohammed. Your question was earlier, it was number 264 and was dropped.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I want to ask question 344 of 2023. Could the Cabinet Secretary provide the status of investigation into the circumstance that led to the death of two minors, namely Absalan Hussein Isaac and Munazil Ado, on 4th May 2023 and 4th June 2023, respectively, who were shot by the police during a peaceful demonstration in Wajir town in two different circumstances. Number two, state what actions the minister has taken against the police officers responsible for killing of the two young men, and explain why the police officers are allowed to use live bullets during peaceful demonstrations. Number three, provide the measures, if any, the ministry has put in place to compensate the families of the minors who were killed during the peaceful demonstrations. Thank you.
Cabinet Secretary.
Madam Speaker, on that May 2023, about 2 p.m., Kenya Wildlife Service officers, while on patrol within Kalakacha sublocation in Wajir, were informed that there were some people dealing with game meat using a motor vehicle, which registration was given, and they intercepted that vehicle. There was an exchange of fire after the occupants decided to stop, and instead they fired at the officers. Regrettably, 2 officers were gunned down in that exchange of fire. On the following day, 4th May 2023, residents of Wajir town demonstrated against the killing and lit bonfires on the streets. The residents, who were armed with stones, rungus, petrol bombs, machetes, tried to overrun the KWS station and later raided Wajir police station with the intention of burning it, but they were repulsed. They looted and destroyed businesses and property worth about 52 million shillings. During the fracas, 14 police officers were injured, and one person, Abdulhassan Hussein Isaac, age 17 years, was shot dead. Investigations were commenced immediately, and an inquest file has been opened by the DCI. Postmortem was conducted at Wajir Hospital. Statements have been recorded. IPOA is also conducting investigations over the incident. Madam Speaker, on 4th June 2023, around 10 a.m., demonstrators invaded Kenya Power and Lighting Company power station within Wajir Township. They were complaining against frequent power outages within the town and were armed with crude weapons, machetes, petrol bombs, stones, and rungus. They destroyed the main gate to access the compound and damaged the vehicles, stores, and workers' residential houses, properties worth 1.2 million. The police officers acted swiftly and repulsed the demonstrators. The station houses power generating station, power plant, and fuel reservoir, and supply power to the whole Wajir County. During the skirmishes, one person, Manazil Odo Hamed, aged 20 years, was shot dead. Inquest file has been opened by DCI, postmortem has been conducted, and statements have been recorded, and IPOA is also conducting investigations on this case. Madam Speaker, the 6th schedule, the National Police Service Act, provides that firearms may be used where saving or protecting the life of the officer or other person, and in self-defense or in defense of other person against imminent threat of life or generous or serious injury. May I take this opportunity to say it's unfortunate that the two young people who died during demonstrations in Wajir, first, as mobs tried to overrun Wajir police station, and on the second instance, as mobs tried to overrun the Kenya Power plant in Wajir, those deaths are regrettable. They are being investigated by the police internally, but because it is suspected that the two deaths are associated with police officers, IPOA, which is the Independent Police Oversight Authority, is carrying out parallel investigations. May I say, therefore, the use of lethal force without, of course, prejudicing ongoing investigations. Police only use lethal force when the life of a police officer or another person is in imminent danger, in self-defense or in defense of another person whose life is in danger. Our officers have been told to apply their weapons in accordance with the law of our country. We have made it clear as policy, and we have communicated to the Inspector General of Police under Article 245 of the Constitution that the government will protect any officer who uses their firearms to defend life, either their own life or the life of a Kenyan from imminent danger, when those weapons are used in accordance with the Constitution and the law. However, officers who misuse firearms and use them outside the law are on their own. And therefore, since the two cases are under investigations, we hope IPOA and other agencies will establish the truth. But to answer the Member of Parliament's question, our officers only use lethal force in the circumstances provided for under Schedule 6 of the National Police Service Act, Cap 11A of 2011.
Thank you, Honorable Member for Wajir West. Are you satisfied, as you've been informed that there is an inquest and investigation by IPOA?
Madam, thank you. Partially satisfied with the answer given by the Minister or the Cabinet Secretary, but I have a follow-up questions regarding the same. My questions are as follows. First, the Minister gave some explanation to why and what happened during those two incidents. But I have a different information from what happened according to what the ministers explained. In the first instances, he said that KWS officers who were pursuing some suspected persons have wanted to stop a vehicle and they wanted to search, and the occupants defied the orders and started shooting. And 2 of them died. Yes, 2 of them died, but there was no recovery of bullets or firearms. In that circumstance, that explanation given is not correct according to the information I have on the ground. And number 2, I want to ask the Cabinet Secretary to give us timeline on when this investigation will be concluded and the truth of the matter known in both occasions. Number 3.
Thank you. Those were 2 questions that you had.
I want to add one more, Madam Speaker, please,
Okay,
with due respect. The third one, the Cabinet Secretary went and visited a place called Arbejahan in Wajir West and promised to recruit NBR, 200 NBRs, which all other process and due diligence have been done and not up to date. They were not trained. Can also the Cabinet Secretary give us information on when will those NPRs on those constituencies will be trained? Thank you.
Thank you. Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. With regard to the version of the facts presented by the Honorable Member, since investigations are ongoing, perhaps that version could also be presented by way of evidence so that the evidence available can be triangulated to establish actually what happened. And as I have said, the investigations are ongoing. That information can be supplied there. Fortunately, for those who perhaps think that the police acted excessively, fortunately for them, there is a track of investigations being carried out by IPOA, and IPOA is independent from the police. So perhaps that will be a trajectory of investigations that can help those who think perhaps that there is something untoward that our officers have done. With regard to timelines, with regard to police investigations, I am told in the next 3 months the police investigations will be over, 2-3 months, because of certain scientific evidence work that is outstanding. But the IPOA investigations, the minister has no control over that process, and perhaps those who are seeking answers could seek those answers from IPOA. And finally, we have been unable to train and deploy NPRs, some of whom we had committed. Again, because of budgetary constraints, we are trying our best, and perhaps this financial year, we'll try and see whether we can fulfill the commitments we made in Wajir. I remember it was on 26th of November last year. I am still very, very alive, but the entire last year, we had no money for NPR training. The IG received no money. This year, with a little budget, we'll prioritize Wajir in honor of the commitment we made last year.
Honorable Mohammed, I can see you're nodding in agreement, so I will assume that you're satisfied and that we can
Thank
proceed
you,
to the
Madam
next
Speaker.
question.
I want to thank the Cabinet Secretary for giving a comprehensive analysis and answers to my question, and I'm waiting for his commitment, for him to fulfill his commitment for both the investigations to be concluded and also to train the NBRs as he promised and also committed on ground. Thank you, Madam.
Next question, Honorable Member for Kisumu West, Honorable Rosa Bui.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to ask the question 345 of 2023. But Madam Speaker, before I ask my question, I'd like to let you know that the Cabinet Secretary actually wrote a response to me, and the only question I'm going to put to him is what he omitted in that response, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, question number 1, which he didn't respond to. Could the Cabinet Secretary provide the status of investigations into the death of Marion Atieno, a minor who lost her life due to the spate of insecurity in Kisumu West Sub-County while on her way home from Kwoyo Secondary School on 3rd June 2023? Madam Speaker, then I go to number 3 because he did answer number 2 satisfactorily in the response he gave to me. Could the Cabinet Secretary explain the measures in place by the government to curb insecurity in Dago, Otonglo, Kisian, Ojola, Obambo, Holo, Lela, Darajambili, and Maseno centers and other areas within Kisumu West Sub-County? Madam Speaker, I will omit the last part of that question because the CS at the beginning already responded to a question by me when I asked if the police officers could be transferred outside the counties in which they operate. He already answered to that bit of the question, so I'll omit that. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Proceed, Honorable Cabinet Secretary.
Honorable Speaker, in response to the question by the member for Kisumu Town West, with regard to the unfortunate death of Marion Otieno, significant progress has been made in tracking down the killer of the young lady, and already we have arrested Benjamin Omondi, a Form 3 student at the same school where the young girl was schooling. Investigation so far has revealed that the murder could have been related to the 2 youngsters who seemed to have been in love, and they had separated, because we have recovered a number of love letters where the key suspect had threatened to kill the girl, and also from his house, the police were able to recover blood-stained school uniform trouser, school tie, school shoes, and black jacket. The suspect also led the police to where he had hidden the blood-stained kitchen knife, suspected to be the murder weapon. So we believe we have the right person in custody. Police have been granted 14 days custodial orders to finalize investigations. Forensic analysis of documents and other materials recovered from the suspect is ongoing, including DNA sampling by the government chemist. The file has been taken to the DPP, and when it was taken to the DPP, the court has already granted the suspect a bond of 300,000 and is out on bond. But so far the evidence is compelling that Mr. Benjamin Omondi is the killer of the young Marion Otieno. The measures that government is taking is really to enhance our community policing, because that's where the gap is. You cannot have a police officer in every home or escorting every person who is walking home at any time. We do not have enough numbers. We do not have that capability. Our strength lies in ensuring that every person becomes an agency of their own security and the security of their neighbors. So we have improved, again, partnerships with members of the community in the area, through our Nyumba Kumi initiative. And as I told the House a little earlier, we are even prepared to review this Nyumba Kumi because we have realized there could be areas that we need to improve on the efficacy of Nyumba Kumi. But we are working on that at the meantime. We have, of course, enhanced patrols. We have also enhanced building trust between police officers and stakeholders. And also we have initiated a neighborhood watch through DCI Kisumu West. We have adopted the neighborhood watch arrangements, and we are educating citizens on crime prevention techniques and so forth and so on. Finally, the sub-county in Kisumu West is keeping a criminal profiling register of all people we believe could be criminals in that area. And this will go a long way in improving our preventive policing approaches so that we prevent unfortunate incidents like the death of Marion Otieno. Honorable Speaker, finally, we believe that when a police officer of whatever rank stays in one station for long, it can compromise his ability to deliver impartial and effective services to the people, because a police officer must be dispassionate, must be not intertwined with the dynamics of local communities. The problem we've had in Kisumu West and other areas of the country, we've had police officers overstaying in an area 10 years, 12 years. Some of them get married to local girls, and you know now when you become a son-in-law in that village, you cannot enforce the law against your father-in-law and your brothers-in-law. So we are very strict on transfers to ensure that the impartiality of our officers is maintained.
Honorable Rosa Buyu, are you satisfied?
Madam Speaker, I just want to point out that in his written response to me, he had also, the Cabinet Secretary had indicated that there must be close working relationship between the security officers and the administration cadre. This is the assistant chiefs and the chiefs. But I'd like to point out, Madam Speaker, that we had interviews in 3 of those volatile sub-locations almost 6 months ago. The sub-locations are Dago, Korando A, Lower Kadongo, and up to now, despite the fact that interviews were complete 6 months ago, we do not have assistant chiefs appointed in those sub-locations. And indeed, like what the Cabinet Secretary said, the assistant chiefs or the administrators could also come in handy when it comes to curbing insecurity within the rural areas. So could the Cabinet Secretary kindly let me know when we could hope to have the assistant chiefs in place in those 3 sub-locations? I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Cabinet Secretary, it seems there's only one follow-up on that one from Honorable Rosa Buyu.
Honorable Speaker, we released the letters for those units in Kisumu West last week. So maybe the member can check on the ground. The letter has left Nairobi to the region for purposes of DCCs, making sure that the chiefs are formally appointed and put in office. But the letters were signed last week.
I'm going to let it rest because I'm in the Security Committee and I'll follow it up with the Cabinet Secretary, but indeed that is not true. But I'll follow it up with him. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank him for answering my questions.
Thank you. I think we can now move to the next question by member for Gilgil, Honorable Martha Wangari.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to ask question 389 of 2023. Number 1, could the Cabinet Secretary expound on the changes made to the National Police Service medical insurance scheme and explain the reasons thereof? Number 2, provide a comparative analysis of the daily outpatient and inpatient medical cover limits and other benefits for junior and senior officers that was being provided by the NHIF vis-a-vis the new consortium of medical insurance providers? And number 3, state the annual amount of money that the National Police Service was paying for medical insurance and what it will pay for the new consortium of medical insurance providers per year. And finally, enumerate measures that the National Police Service is undertaking to address the challenges of accessing the few listed hospitals in the new medical cover by the police officers. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Cabinet Secretary, you may proceed to answer.
Honorable Speaker, it is true changes were made to the National Police Service and Kenya Prison Service medical insurance scheme last year. And between 2017 and 2023, the payments, the government of Kenya had contracts for provision of a medical cover for the police and the prisons between 2017 and 2022, and the premiums that were payable as requested by the member is for the police 4.7 billion and I think for the period between 1st October 2017 to 30th September 2019, the premium was 4.7 billion, and from 1st July 2021 to 30th June 2022, it was 4.7 billion. The reason why the changes were made last year are twofold. First is that the NHIF, which was covering the police and our prisons, indicated that they wanted to revise the premium upwards and quoted a figure of 12.3 billion. However, the available budgetary allocation for the National Police Service for medical cover was 4.7 billion during the financial year 2022-2023. And therefore, this amount NHIF was asking for to be able to renew the contract was beyond the budget that was available. Number 2, the NHIF had also entered into fresh service level agreements, SLAs, with health facilities for the year 2022-2023 on terms clearly disadvantageous to the National Police Service and Kenya Prison Service. For those two reasons, and the disadvantage was that the benefits were reduced. They were asking for more money for reduced benefits. As a result of that, the government decided to advertise or to invite tenders for medical cover, and the following 4 bidders participated. AAR Insurance, leading a consortium with Jubilee Health Insurance and APA Insurance. The second one was Kenya Alliance Insurance Company. The first consortium quoted 14.8 billion. Kenya Alliance Insurance Company quoted 12.8 billion. CIC, a consortium led by CIC General Insurance, Old Mutual, and Britam, quoted 8.6 billion, and NHIF quoted 9.365 billion. The successful bidder was declared to be CIC Insurance and the consortium based on the criteria that was set in the tender documents at a price of 8.6 billion. In addition, there were other infractions that made the NHIF cover untenable. For example, NHIF failed to account for the ex gratia sums amounting in total to 750 million computed as contracts, contracts number 002-2017-2018 for 400 million, contract extension from 1st October 2019 to 30th June 2020, 150 million, and contract number 015 2019-2020, 200 million. There were other complaints and challenges we were facing with NHIF, including lack of detailed ex gratia reports, and they also failed, NHIF failed to comply with the stipulated obligations under the contracts, including establishing a dedicated administrative unit to manage the medical cover and last expense cover, establishing a 24-hour operational contract care center, self-care services, ensuring that the healthcare providers and an SLA to ensure that members of the scheme got the prescribed drugs and other services at all times, etc., etc. Honorable Speaker, the contract for medical cover between NPS and CIC provides a list of guaranteed benefits and several inbuilt mechanisms to secure the benefits. And this includes medical cover for the principal member and a declared spouse and 5 children up to the age of 21, no age limit for dependents living with disability, access to outpatient, inpatient, and specialized medical services in recognized government, faith-based, and private health facilities across the country, no limit for outpatient treatment for non-uniformed officers in job group A to L, PG 1 to 7 for NPS, and PG 1 to 8 for KPS. Outpatient limits in high-cost private hospitals for non-uniformed officers, no limit for an inpatient treatment in amenity wards for non-uniformed officers, and other benefits. So, Honorable Speaker, the health facilities that are being used by our officers now include all government healthcare facilities, including level 3, 4, and 5 hospitals, all facilities previously providing services to the NPS and KPS personnel, private hospitals such as Gertrude's, Aga Khan, MP Shah, Karen Hospital, and Nairobi Hospital for unlimited medical services. In addition, the service provider has a continuing obligation under the contract to ensure provision of quality services and availability of prescribed drugs and the services at all times, and also ensure no member or their dependent is denied service on ground of delay of submission of payment of premium during the subsistence of the contract, issue a last visit after every visit, as well as where a member utilization benefit has reached 75%, and finally promptly refund or reimburse a member for any cost incurred for prescribed drugs and services not available in the designated health facilities. The NPS has also established a standing contract implementation committee which undertakes member sensitization to provide periodic review of the reports from the service and the overall performance of the medical scheme. The most notable complaints received by the committee concerning access to the health facilities have since been addressed. The National Police Service and Kenya Prison Service Scheme has also provided a toll-free telephone number to assist members experiencing difficulties in accessing the medical service. I submit.
Yes, member for Gilgil.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I also want to thank the CS because he had provided the written answer quite beforehand. But the clarification I would like to get is how does this sit in terms of the whole government approach, considering that police officers, especially the junior officers, are not unionizable, so they have no way of actually getting these concerns heard. And when I read the response, Madam Speaker, I see the CS confirming that some money from the NHIF, about 750 million, has not been accounted for. Now we are doing a restructure of the same NHIF. So I would like to know how does that sit, especially with the reviewed UHC, or rather universal health care, by the government, and the whole government approach, I feel like government is bullying government. NHIF was giving bad service and actually bullied government to actually outsource the same services. And finally, how can we ensure that these police officers, considering that you have given in these responses to this house, that you're not supposed to stay in one station for over 3 years, they keep moving, why can't all hospitals be available? Because most of this, what is happening, Madam Speaker, is that a police officer will go to a hospital. They may not be adamantly told they would not be treated, but they keep saying that it is complicated. It is not the way it used to be. So that forces the officer to look for other areas to be treated. So how can this be improved to be very easy for use and actually be accessible even to the private hospitals everywhere, so that whenever you change a station, you can still be treated even if you are not in that area anymore? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Cabinet Secretary.
Honorable Speaker, I agree with the Member of Parliament for Gilgil on the last issue of the need to ensure that police officers access as many facilities as possible, even when they are on transfer. Luckily, right now there is an ongoing discussion on the contractual arrangement that will be in place from 1st of January, and I'm sure this recommendation will be part of the contractual obligations that, in my view, should be imposed on the service providers to ensure that our police officers who correctly are not unionizable are able to be taken care of. Yet they do very sensitive duty, and we cannot put them in an uncomfortable position when they get sick or injuries in the course of duty. So I accept this is something that we can input in the negotiations for the contracts for the period starting January. Madam Speaker, also the member for Gilgil has asked about the whereabouts of or the position about the 750 million that was not accounted for by NHIF. I think by the time we decided to float tenders for other service providers to express interest, we had a not so good relationship as National Police Service and Kenya Prison Service with NHIF as our service provider. A case was made that this is a government institution, it should be supported, but we also made a very strong case that national security and the officers who serve in these agencies do such a dangerous, risky, and exposed duty that the service provider must not be the kind that will expose them to uncertainty, especially when we get injuries in operational areas. So we took the painful decision of saying, let's give the best that we can get from the market as opposed to staying with NHIF and exposing our officers. Finally, the member for Gilgil has also asked about the restructuring that is happening around NHIF, and I would not want to comment on that because I think for now, for us as security people, our concern was the best service for our officers, whether it comes from NHIF or from any other provider. We had to part ways for the reasons I've given. The cost, they wanted to review upwards the premiums, way beyond the budget, yet the benefits were much less than what we were looking for, and they could not account for some of the money, and we are following up that for accountability purposes, even as we ensure that there is no gap in the insurance of our police and prison officers.
Member for Gilgil, are you satisfied?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The only clarification finally I would want to get from the CS is that I have one payslip from a constable for August who have just been sent here. They are contributing NHIF 1,300 per month. So have you parted totally away from NHIF, or are you still charging them, yet they are not giving you the services that you need for the police service?
Cabinet Secretary.
For those members who are still contributing to NHIF, they are entitled to use the NHIF card. So this other scheme is over and above NHIF, and the officer can choose which scheme to use. If you contribute to NHIF, you are entitled to the service.
Thank you. And lastly, Cabinet Secretary, you've been very patient. We have just the last question by the Honorable Member for Lamu East, Honorable Captain Rueda.
Asante Bi Speaker. Kwa sababu ya umoja wa watu wa Lamu, ningeomba swali langu nambari 2, 3 nijibiwe kwa maandishi, na nambari 1 lishajibiwa, liko kwa vyombo vya habari. Pia Rais na Waziri Kindiki wamelivalia njuga swali letu la upande wa kutengwa, marginalization. Ndio maana tunapata barabara ya kwanza. Juzi Jumamosi Rais alikuja kuweka barabara ya kihistoria katika miaka 60. Hatujawahi kupata even one inchi ya barabara, lakini Rais amekuja kutuwekea, na Waziri Kindiki anang'ang'ana na mambo ya marginalization au jamii zilizotengwa, anang'ang'ana sana. Haya yatasaidia kwa usalama, na wale wanaotumia kutengwa kugawanya watu wa Lamu watakuwa hawawezi kugawanya tena. Asante Bi Speaker.
Really, haukuwa na swali? She dropped. Okay.
Ni Bi Speaker, kwa sababu hili swali nikiuliza litetenganisha sana watu wa Lamu. Hatutaki tuonekane ni sisi dhidi ya wao. Itakaa hapa ni baina vita sisi dhidi ya wao, na hii itachangia zaidi utovu wa usalama. Ningeomba waziri anijibu swali langu la 2 na la 3 kwa maandishi. Pia swali la kwanza limepitwa na wakati kwa sababu waziri mwenyewe ashawahi kujibu swali hili, liko kwa vyombo vya usalama.
Asante. Okay. Asante. You have dropped the question. All right. Honorable Cabinet Secretary, I think thank you very much. You have, for your extreme patience. You've taken, I think probably these are the longest time. Yes, I think the longest time that has taken. Now, Honorable Chair, we still have Committee of the Whole House